And there we go. Apologies for the delay, but most of you didn't hear it because most things weren't up. You know, that is the second time in a week that has happened. You know, you guys know, sometimes when you update, you know, they send you the automatic updates on Windows. This is one of those times where it really wreaks havoc, and you have to go back and undo things and turn the clock back, if you will, on things because you do some automatic updating and it just wreaks havoc on things. That's what just happened here. Hey, we're off and running now. We're locked and loaded, but a little bit of a testy situation there again, you know. But we're back, we're running. Welcome in, you guys. Not just another day, another edition of the Sports Fix, a whole nother month. The calendar flips here into the month of March as we get rolling. And I am excited, baby. Not only, it's March Madness, not just the tournament, in general, baby. We've got Tribe happening tomorrow. Tribe, somebody said the magic word. Speaking of Tribe, the Tribe Trivia Challenge is in we're past the 7th inning stretch. We're in the bottom of the 9th. You've got your last chance to hit one out of the park here, and I'm going to do something that I said I wasn't going to do, but I'm going to do it anyway here. I'm going to, before we wrap up the first segment here, I think, after we get rolling, get to talking about some stuff, a couple of things from the weekend to get into, I'm going to recap you. Perhaps you're listening for the very first time today. We'll hit all of the previous 9 questions in the Tribe Trivia Challenge, and remember, 10 questions over 10 days. It ends today. You email your answers. The winner tomorrow will be announced and is going to walk away with a Cooperstown collectible 1972 Gaylord Perry Cleveland Indians jersey. The real deal, baby, and it's going to the winner of the Tribe Trivia Challenge if there's a tie in number of correct answers, and that may happen, especially with today. I'm pretty proud of today's question. It's going to take you a little bit of looking around to figure this one out, but we'll have to see what happens there. Tomorrow, the winner will be announced just in time for the Indians to start spring training. Yeah, baby, feeling good about that. How about you? Welcome in, you guys. Let's do it. You ready to rock and roll? Kick off the month of March now that everybody can hear us across all of the platforms. I think everybody's here. Let's do the thing. Welcome in to the Sports Fix, you guys. I'm your host, the Big Daddy on the microphone, J-Rocc Jerry Myers, here each and every weekday at noon, live across the Sports Fix radio network. I mean, even if sometimes parts of that network don't want to work right away, we'll get it rolling, get it rocking and rolling like we did here today. Welcome in if you're listening live. I'm your host, J-Rocc Jerry Myers, the Big Daddy on the microphone. Welcome in those of you listening live on TuneIn's radio app and digital app worldwide. Those listening on Spreaker and Mixler as well, their respective digital and mobile applications. Those of you that stream us, welcome in live right on the sportsfix.net, our home base, your one-stop shop for all things Cleveland sports and all the archives and replays of the Sports Fix, all of that stuff. Bookmark it today, plus the show streams live, no matter whether it's up and on TuneIn, on any of the other sites, on Spreaker, Mixler, doesn't matter. It's always live at noon, right on time, on the sportsfix.net. Welcome in as well the thousands of you guys each day who listen around the world on sites such as iHeartRadio, the world's largest internet radio provider, on digital delay on Spreaker and Stitcher and CarPlay and SoundCloud and all of the other places that you guys subscribe, feed, download the show. Thank you guys for being a part of the show and getting your fix and doing the Sports Fix thing as you guys do each day and being the Sports Fix. The heartbeat of this thing is you guys, whether the phones are open, and when they are, 216-539-7535, 216-539-7535. Many of you guys can't get to the phones because you're not listening live, or you can't get away because you're listening on your phone or you're at work, and that is all good. My friends, use our social media. Nearly, 23,000, something like that combined across our social media. And you guys hit us up every day at facebook.com/thesportsfix. Tweet with us at The Sports Fix, CLE. Email us, thesportsfix@AOL.com, facebook.com/The Sports Fix, and tweet with us at The Sports Fix, CLE. Tons of things to get into today. Dan Wismar from the Cleveland Fans going to join us here in a little bit. We'll talk some Buckeyes hoops with him, latest for the Indians in spring training, liking some of the things I'm hearing out of this, and can't wait to talk some Tribe with him. We're going to get to the Tribe Trivia Challenge in a minute. A lot of hoops to talk about over the weekend. Results-wise, this wasn't the most positive. Glass couldn't have been exactly half full this weekend with the way things worked out, at least in our neck of the woods here, Cleveland-wise. Vikings had a little tough stretch there. The Monsters have had a tough start to this homestand. The Cavaliers didn't have the greatest weekend, although it wasn't the worst weekend either. We'll talk about that here in a minute. And then the Brownies. Well, of course, they're always a ray of sunshine on a cloudy day. I mean, they went out. You know what? Look, and the only reason I'm even going to get into this for a minute is because I truly feel this thing just drips. And this thing being the signing, I can't believe it. You guys, all weekend, cats were hitting me up listening to the replays of the show like, oh, so I guess you're really not happy this weekend, because on Friday I was going, yay, Buffalo. Come on, Buffalo. Sign that man, Josh McCown, to a contract. Buffalo had quickly grown on me and become one of my favorite football teams all of a sudden, and they let me down because they let the fish off the hook, and somehow the Browns felt the need to trump the Buffalo Bills and offer 3 years. Listen, I get it that they could get out of it after 1 year and almost $7 million. It doesn't matter. The Browns felt the need. Look, you know what they felt the need to do? They felt the need to lift their leg at Brian Hoyer on his way out the door. And that is truly, guys, the way I feel about this. You know what Josh McCown's saving grace was to the Browns front office? That his last name was not Hoyer. I mean, that honestly, I said this last week. You could have came at me with a lot of other names and said, all right, here, but when you look at this, you go, look, you know what I see? Exactly what we've been saying. What did I say? This front office, you can hear it now. Wait till mini camps roll around. Just wait. You're going to start hearing the stories about how Johnny Manziel's out of rehab and he's got a new mindset, but the Browns don't believe it. The Browns say actions mean more than words, and you're going to see a lot of stories written by Mary Kay Cabot and Pro Football Talk that say Browns cautiously optimistic heading into minicamp. And then the stories will start to trickle out from the unnamed sources in Berea about how they've never seen Johnny Manziel train like this. He trains like a man possessed and like a man who wants to recapture his greatness. And boy, the Browns are just bubbling with excitement, but they're still cautiously optimistic. And then you'll start to hear at training camp time about how, boy, Johnny's showing a grasp of this playbook that he never had before, and he's really running away with this thing. You know what they did? Because Johnny couldn't raise himself up to Brian Hoyer, who, by the way, some of you guys can't stop reminding me enough just how horrible Brian Hoyer is. Not only could he not beat him out, so what did we do? We're going to go out and bring in somebody who we know, we're going to dumb down the quarterback competition here. And you can't tell me, come on, don't tell me that's not what they're doing. But here's the thing. I'm being serious about this because I'm not one of those guys that jumps on the Browns for everything like some people do, but I don't let them slide on everything either. Here's the thing. You can do a lot of these moves and preach that they make sense. And even people, that was my favorite thing all weekend long. The anti-Hoyer people hitting me up going, man, I'd have took Hoyer. I'd have took Hoyer all day over this. I thought there were better options. I didn't know that we were doing. You guys realize that not only did Josh McCown go 1-10 last year, he did it in the absolute worst division in football, whereas Brian Hoyer did what he did in the toughest division in football. Josh McCown is absolutely the definition of a guy here to hold the clipboard and show Johnny Manziel how to go out there and get everybody to the line of scrimmage and do their. I'm telling you, man, everybody knows that. And that's the thing. That's what makes him attractive to the Browns. And I don't get this, because here's what a lot of you guys that don't like Hoyer have been hitting me with all weekend. Well, Hoyer doesn't know his place. Hoyer needs to know that his place is a backup and he expects to be a starter. Well, I did not know that people are supposed to know their place in sports. I'm sorry. I do not want a locker room full of cats that know their place. I would prefer a locker room full of people that at least give the attempt, the physical appearance of of getting something better, of doing something stronger. Lord forgive Brian Hoyer for being too career ambitious. So we went out and got a guy who knows his role, a guy who knows his place and will happily settle in the background. Because at the end of the day, that quarterback question that we kept mentioning kept coming back to who? Brian Hoyer, and it drove the Browns crazy. Look, Ray Farmer, clearly you can see the direction this was going all season long. And man, how about some of the stuff, for those of you that don't know, as the reports trickle more and more out about the text gate, whatever you want to call it, it's not so much that it happened, but now the reports coming out of how early that started. Game 2 are the reports coming out. That was the first. Game 2 was when the texts from the general manager began to why the quarterback was still in the game that early in the season. No wonder Brian Hoyer can't get out of this town fast enough, man. And I get it, but you can't tell me that Brian Hoyer wouldn't have stayed here for the money that they paid Josh McCown. This has nothing to do with money. This is about opportunity, and there is no opportunity here in Cleveland. Period. Obviously, this is going with Johnny. I'm telling you, think I'm crazy now. 2 months from now, you guys are going to be sending me emails as you hear those first articles that say Browns cautiously optimistic about the new Johnny Manziel. The story, the spin begins. Watch, my friends, watch. But that trips me out, because how can you say you're driving competition at every position? How can you say that when that is clearly not the case here? And I understand that they felt the need to move on in a different direction, but the direction that they're moving is ridiculous, and you can't sell that to anybody. And I'm telling you, here's a cool litmus test to me. It's Browns fans, and we know that Browns fans ride heavy on the homer side. I mean, do you know the hardcore homers? And there's nothing wrong with that if that's what you are. Do you know how much it takes to swing them over? Do you know how much it takes to have them just uniformly deride something? Think about it. Even when you draft Brandon Whedon, there's a big part of the fan base that says, hey, we can get on board with this, even while other guys are going, hey, he's 57 years old. You know what I'm saying? I'm joking. We don't need to take shots at Brandon Whedon. His play does that all by itself. What I mean is there's always a portion of the fan base that can sell something. I have not seen anybody sell anything about this other than you better cross your fingers and hope that the Browns know something about Johnny Manziel that the rest of us don't. And that's what they think. They think they do. We've been saying this since the day at the end of the offseason. What did I tell you guys? My little birdie and Berea told me that there are people in the front office all the way to the tippy top who blame the problems of last season from the beginning on Brian Hoyer being in the way, not knowing his place, messing everything up for Johnny Land all season long. And all I'm saying is, bro, if they had went with Mike Pettin from week one, with Johnny Manziel from week one, we wouldn't have Mike Pettin for week one of this season, because he'd be gone. They'd have ran him out after that. Trust me. And Mike Pettin knows that. He's the one person in the building sitting here going, man, they better draft me a defense. They better just keep adding to this defense. Look, what are they doing to me? You know what? That's fine. I'm going to coach them. But seriously, guys, how else do you expect to sell that? I mean, because now you can't tell me they're going to sign another veteran in free agency. I'm not going crazy with this. I'm being real. You can't tell me they're going to sign another veteran in free agency. They're not bringing Brian Hoyer back. Clearly, that ship has sailed and it's done and gone. And he'll probably he might jump over there into Buffalo and go take the starting job there. But I still think Houston is a very strong possibility for him. There's connections down there. And if so, that's a team in place that you put just a decent starting quarterback there and watch what Houston could do next year. And he may be having the last laugh there if he ends up there. I don't know that Buffalo, whatever. Anyways, but they were smart enough not to sign McCown. So say what you want about the Bills. They were smart enough not to sign the guy that the Browns went ahead and gave a bunch of money to here this upcoming offseason, man. But, what else is the plan? Because clearly at this point, all you could be doing is you're now either going to draft a middle round draft quarterback, which means for sure It's the Manziel train next to you. You can sell me McCown all you want. If it's McCown, you're in trouble. If it's Manziel, you're in even more trouble. So there's no positive way to spin that one. Don't tell me Connor Shaw. Connor Shaw being more prepared than Johnny Manziel is not the same as Connor Shaw being your quarterback alternative. He has got to do a lot of work physically to be that guy. I would continue to develop him. No doubt I would continue to develop him if I were the Browns. But don't tell me that. So you're either going to draft a middle round guy, or here we go, we're going to mortgage everything and we're going to go up to the top. Cannot do that. Don't need to do that. Is that what they're going to do? Because that's all this signals is the two things that we just described. Either we're going up to the top of the draft, and that is a crapshoot, because you're going to the top of the draft most likely for the guy who, while he's got potential, is the less NFL ready of the two guys that we're talking about at the top of the draft, and I mean Mariota. So you're doing that dance and giving away a lot of what is supposed to build the depth of your team for the next couple of years. That's one of the things that people are pointing at to build this team where you need it to be. Do you do that? Or it's McCown and Manziel heading into training camp. And I'll tell you what, all you Hoyer haters will definitely be crying in those number 6 jerseys come training camp if that is your starting quarterback battle right there. And if that's the case, then you guys are going to point back to January and go, man, that crazy old J-Rocc was right all along, because they sure rigged this thing and set it up to make sure that nothing stands in Johnny's way of getting a second chance of doing this. They are positive that they were right about him, and they're going to go with it. I'll tell you. I saw an interesting article, too. Pat McManaman on ESPN pointed out some of the things about this. When people point to the connection between the quarterback coach and the quarterback, it was 7 years ago. So it's not like they worked together, a year and a half ago and have this familiarity. I mean, that's back when McCown was still a prospect. Now he's on the verge of collecting the NFL pension plan, man. I mean, he's right there. I'm just saying, man. Guys, they can't sell it to me any other way, and they're not selling it to you. That's circling back to what we were saying, is one of the things I've noticed is I have not had one Browns homer, and there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying that derogatory. Say, yay, Josh McCown. They're all like, Lord help us. Please help us. Come on, DeMarco Murray. Somebody go sign. Somebody sign a running back. Sign something here. Tell me that we're going to do something other than put the ball in the hands of Josh McCown or perhaps somebody else, man. Come on, man. But I mean, to me, the fact that that's who you went and got, that's the ultimate kick in the tail to a guy that, whether you like Brian Hoyer or not. And liking him is different than respecting his game. Most people should like him, and a lot of you should still respect his game, even if you believe that there's a cap on the talent of what he can do. But to look at what he went through while he was here, both the injury and being undermined from his general manager from the top down, being undermined the way that he was during a comeback, that injury is tough for anybody to come back. Seriously, guys, that is a hell of an injury to come back from. To be undermined the entire time, overcome, end up getting the job, still be undermined all the way along the way, and then for them to just kind of, hey, man, just whip it out and trickle on you on the way out the door is the way I feel about it. That's it's business. I can't even say it's disrespectful in business, because it's what you do. You move on. But when you know the big picture, when you've been here in Cleveland and you see it, you go, man, and then you wonder why people say, karma is what it is. Sometimes you wonder if a bad organization is a bad organization because they're clueless, or because, sometimes karma's a heck of a thing, man. And when you hear about things, that when you see things that are, and there you go. That's what I'm going to say. When you see things that don't look right, you can't put words to it because it don't look right, and it don't walk right, and it don't talk right. Don't tell me it's a duck. It's not a duck, But anyways, man, and I just think that the way it all went down, you look back and go, really? All that time looking for the guy, and you moved out the only one who gave you a modicum of respectability and success for a guy that couldn't win 2 games in the only division in football that sent a sub-500 team to the playoffs. I'm just saying, Josh McCown. That's the end of the sentence. That's the end of the discussion. Josh McCown. They said, you know what? If the quarterback can't raise to the level of the competition, then we're going to adjust the level of the competition to the quarterback that we want to start. And that, my friends, explains the signing of Josh McCown in a nutshell, one way or the other, even if they do go out and draft somebody here in this draft. All right, guys, you know what? We got a lot to get into, and I'm done with that. I'm done talking about that for now, although we do got some football talk to get into this week as we're right here, free agency coming, and it'll be time to start making some moves, making some decisions. But let's, speaking of making some moves, how about before we hit the break, we'll talk some Cavaliers and some Buckeyes and some CSU hoops. Let's get to talking some basketball. Then we'll get Dan Wismar in on the conversation. But first, let's get you in on the Tribe Trivia Challenge, guys. Maybe you're listening for the first time today, or maybe you've tuned in before. The Tribe Trivia Challenge, it's been going on for the last week and a half. It ends tomorrow. Well, today's the final question. Tomorrow, we give a winner the grand prize, which is a 1972 Cleveland Indians home white Gaylord Perry jersey, a Cooperstown collectible. Somebody is going to get it for answering 10 questions in 10 days. How many did you get right if you entered? I don't know. Do you know? We'll find out tomorrow. But if you have not entered, or if this is your first time listening, I am going to break my own rule, and I'm going to go back, and I'm going to recap the 9 previous questions for today, and then question number 10, I think I might save question number 10 for Dan Wismar coming up on the show a little bit later. May have to make you wait for that one. Or, we'll see here. Yeah, you know what? Let's drop the trivia questions here, and then we'll see what we feel like at the end of it. But if you haven't entered and you want to get them in, you have until noon tomorrow. Right when we start the show tomorrow is the cutoff for all correct answers. So make sure you get your answers in for question number 10 and for any of the previous 9 before noon tomorrow, before we go live on the air, noon Eastern time on Tuesday. And then Jeff Gorman and I will announce the winner tomorrow when we start talking Tribe and previewing that first spring training game. So before we can get to the end, let's go back to the beginning. It was 10 questions in 10 days. The first question, you guys, and all you do is email thesportsfix@aol.com and put question number 1, 2, 3, etc., and email us your answers. And if you're doing it today, go ahead and send me a bulk email with all your answers on it. That's fine as well. And as I said, the number of correct answers, the most wins. Let's see who can get to 10. Today's is a good one. But let's recap the 9 questions that led to today, to the final question. We started off with a real simple one here. Got you warmed up, nice and easy. Question number 1 in the Tribe Trivia Challenge. Who is the Indians' all-time leader in hits and at-bats? Who is the Cleveland Indians' all-time leader in hits and at-bats? Question number 2 gets a little bit difficult here as we started picking up things. You'll hear the difference as these questions roll on. Question number 2 came from Dan Wismar, by the way. Who was the very first Cleveland Indians player and when to be featured on the cover of Sports Illustrated? The very first Cleveland Indians player to be featured on the cover of Sports Illustrated magazine. And then 1 month later, who was the second Cleveland Indians player also featured on the same magazine? First and second, within a month of each other there, Indians players featured on the cover of Sports Illustrated. Question number 3. Who was the last Cleveland, and this was an interesting question because we had some different answers. We found out that we had to track it down even more. Who is the last Cleveland Indians position player to make their major league debut on opening day? Who's the last Cleveland Indian to make their major league debut? Means the first time they started the game. So relief pitchers did not start the game. Last Indian to make their major league debut on opening day. Major League, speaking of Major League, the movie takes us to question number 4. And you'll have some fun, by the way, in that last one when you look it up. Question number 4 came from Jonathan Knight, and it came from the movie Major League, as we're up here on the anniversary of Major League, the movie. In the movie Major League, what was the name of the starting pitcher for the Cleveland Indians on opening day in the original Major League movie? It's a throwback to Cleveland Indians history, actually. What was the name of the starting pitcher for the Cleveland Indians on opening day in the original movie Major League? Question number 5. How many Cleveland Indians in history have hit for the cycle? And the second part is, how many, while hitting for the cycle, only one person did this, scored only 1 run while hitting for the cycle? How many Cleveland Indians have hit for the cycle in franchise history, and who was the one who only scored 1 run in the process? Question number 6, only one time in Major League Baseball history has this happened, and it involved the Cleveland Indians. Who was the teams and the managers involved in the only manager-for-manager trade in baseball history? The Indians were involved in it. They traded their manager for another manager. I know some teams wish they could still do that here today. Indians involved in a bit of history. Name the managers and the teams involved in that trade. Question number 7. There were 4 Indians managers over the years who, as players, were Rookie of the Year during their career. 4 Indians managers who, during their playing careers, were Rookies of the Year. Who were those 4 Cleveland Indians managers? Question number 8. This is a good one. This is a good one here. How many Indians players, Mike Brandenburry had this one, or who is the last Cleveland Indians player who made an All-Star game during his career, who stayed with the Indians from the beginning of his career to the end, never went anywhere else? The last, because there's been more than one. Who was the last Cleveland Indians player who made an All-Star game and stayed with the Tribe their entire career? That one's an interesting one to look up. All right, question number 9, which came on Friday, which came from Jonathan Knight, the sports writer extraordinaire. Who was the last Cleveland Indians starting pitcher to both start and win and be the winning pitcher? That was not just win the game. Who was the last Indian starter to start and win back-to-back opening days for the Cleveland Indians? Not home openers. Back-to-back opening days. Last Indian starter to both start and get the W in back-to-back opening games. And you know what? I almost don't feel... You know what? I can't wait. I'm going to go ahead. We're going to bust out question number 10 now, and then I'll ask Dan Wismar when he comes on the show what he thinks of this. But since we're rolling, since you're feeling it, in the trivia mood, while you're going and Googling and looking and all of that stuff, here we go. Question number 10. Coming your way, the final question in the Tribe 2015 Trivia Challenge, brought to you by the Sports Fix and the Morning Wood. This one's a pretty good one here, and I'll be interested to see if you guys have any corrections on this too, because always you guys are sleuthing it out there like, I'm telling you, man, you're out there like Columbo. And one more thing, J-Rocc, just one more thing. Let me correct that. So maybe we'll see if there's any corrections to this one, but this was a pretty interesting one. I'll take credit for this one because I came up with this one, and again, let me know if you find any different research than me. But according to my research, there have been 8 Indians announcers over the years in the history of the franchise on both television and radio who have also, at some time in their career, called games officially for either the Cavaliers or the Browns. Who are those 8 announcers? In the course of the Cleveland Indians franchise on TV and radio, there's been a ton of different announcers, all the greats that we've had from the beginning all the way to Tom Hamilton down to what we've got now. There have been 8 of those Indians announcers who have also called at least one season of of Cavaliers or Browns action. Who are those 8 announcers who have been in the rare group to call both the Indians and either the Cavaliers or the Browns? This is a pretty good one, and you can't Google search it. It's going to take you some work. It took me some work to make sure that I had it, and even then it took some correcting and some recorrecting, and I think we've got it. Hey, you may find out there's more than 8, so we'll find out about that. But that is the final, and if there is, that may be the tiebreaker if we end up tied. But that is question number 10. There have been 8 announcers in the course of Cleveland Indians history who have also been fortunate enough to call at least one season for the Cavaliers or the Cleveland Browns. Who is that rare select group of announcers who have crossed over from the Indians to the Cavs or the Browns throughout the course of their career? Email your answer to that and all of the other questions. All 10, you just heard it. That's the Tribe Trivia Challenge in a nutshell. Email your answers to as many of those questions as you can, or all of them if you can. Tomorrow, we're going to tally them up, and whoever has got the most correct answers will be announced as our winner. of that fantastic prize from our friends over at the Morning Wood, the 1972 Cleveland Indians home white Gaylord Perry jersey, a Cooperstown collectible, and it's going to be in your Hall of Fame if you have answered the most number of questions right in the Tribe Trivia Challenge. 10 questions, 10 days. How many did you get? Let's find out tomorrow, guys. I'm going to talk some more about that later. Let's take our first break. Long opening segment there. Take our first break, come back, catch our breath, reset, and talk some hoops. A lot of basketball action over the weekend. Cavaliers, not the results they wanted, but I'll tell you, I'm a little higher on things after yesterday than you think. Man, did yesterday's game seriously not feel like you get LeBron and Harden hooking it up there at the end? That had a little bit of that feel. Like when I saw them hooked up arm in arm, I had flashbacks of, and I'm not going too grandiose with this, but of that famous shot of Bird and Magic in the playoffs. Arms hooked, battling each other for boards, like that intensity. And that's one of the things I get on the modern players and then LeBron and guys like that for sometimes is you don't feel that as much. But I'll tell you, you definitely felt some of that in yesterday's game. It had that true championship level, playoff level intensity between a couple of teams that wanted to make a point yesterday. And the Cavaliers showed, to me, they showed something, especially being down. But you know what? Hey, they weren't the only ones that were down, by the way. There's obviously Dwight Howard didn't play too. Let's talk some hoops here when we come back. Cavaliers hoops, Vikings hoops. They didn't get it done the other night. Now they've got a longer road to hold here in the Horizon League tournament. We'll talk about all of that in a few minutes. Talk some hoops, then Dan Wismar joins us, and so much more. Don't go anywhere. The Sports Fix is off and running here for the month of March, baby. Here we go. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back talking some hoops and taking your calls. I got some calls coming in. 216-539-7535. We'll be right back here on The Fix.
This is the Sports Fix.
Are you talking to me?
Yes.
Are you talking to me?
Yes.
Are you talking to me?
Yes.
They call me Mr. Pig!
We'll call you whatever you like, as long as we can call you a fan of the Sports Fix.
Guys, want to take just a second as we head into this break and remind you about the official business printing source of the Sports Fix, our friends at Signs and Ship. Signs and Ship, I'm telling you, Chris and Pam, they've taken care of me since day one, and they can do the same for you. Whether you're a small business that's already been established and you're looking to grow to that next level and expand your business, or perhaps you've got an idea that you just know is going to be a great business and you need to figure out how to brand it and how to promote it and put it out there, Signs and Ship is the place for you. If you need a logo, they can create one for you. They have a fantastic graphic designer. Business cards, signs, banners, yard signs, mobile advertising, anything you can think of that you need to promote your business, they've got it at Signs and Ship. The best thing about them, too, is each of their locations, whether it's the home base here in Elyria, Ohio that I work with, or their spots in Virginia, Florida, and Pennsylvania, it's all local sourced. Very important to me because we all understand that small business is the lifeblood of the community. So check them out, signsandship.com, or call Chris and Pam today, 440-323-6060, the home office in Elyria, Ohio. Signs and Ship, quality printing at affordable prices.
Sports Fix listeners, like us on Facebook today. Facebook.com/The Sports Fix.
How to be a great dad in 15 seconds. Bike ride, go fish, walk in the park, phone call, milkshake, play catch, picnic, fly a kite, tell jokes, laugh, talk, read a story, tell a story, bumper car, swing set, bowling, pillow fight, cut loose, stay tight. Whew. Because the smallest moments can have the biggest impact on a child's life. Take time to be a dad today. Call 877-4DAD-411 or visit fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Fantasy sports lovers, you put so much time, hard work, and effort into playing week to week that it quickly stops being a fantasy and starts getting real. And when the smoke clears, you want to show off those victories with a real prize.
I mean, a really real prize.
Nobody does that like Fantasy Jocks. The crew over at Fantasy Jocks have beautiful, high-quality, and heavy-duty championship belts, rings, trophies, and so much more for all your fantasy sports needs. There's literally only one place to go. FantasyJocks.com.
Here we go, bring it on in. It's time now. It's all city. We got to do it for them, dog. We got to do it for Cleveland. They're waiting on us. Let's find what we're about. Let's get it going. Every single night, every single practice, every single game, we got to give it all we got because they're going to ride with us. Everything that we do on this floor will be because of this city. We owe them. We're going to grind for this city. They're going to support us, man, but we got to give it all back to them. We get it done. The toughness that we have on the court is going to come from this city. Everybody, the whole city of Cleveland. That's what it's all about. It's time to bring them something special. Let's go. Bring it on in, everybody. Let's go. Hard work on 3. Together on 6. 1, 2, 3. Hard work. 4, 5, 6. Together. 1, 2, 3. Hard work. 4, 5, 6. Together. It's all us. Cleveland on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Hey everybody, this is Jerry the King Lawler from WWE, and you're listening to the Sports Fix.
They're playing basketball without that basketball. They're playing basketball without that basketball.
Welcome back to the Sports Fix, live across the Sports Fix Radio Network. J-Rocc back with you here, and we're getting going. A little bit of a lengthy first segment there, but did a little bit of a recap of the Tribe Trivia Challenge. All 10 questions laid out there for you. Let's see how many you can get. I can't wait to see who ends up winning this thing tomorrow, because really, today, and everybody's been asking me for hints. I refuse to tell anybody how close they are, how many they got right. I'm not giving anybody chances to change or correct, or you got to go with what you think it is, and we'll see how it all shakes out. But it's interesting here because everybody's answering in the dark. Nobody knows where they may have stumbled. Only I know. Only the shadow knows. And then we'll have to see, man. But today's question is tricky, and we'll have to see who it tripped. I'll tell you what, Dan Wismar just took a shot at it. He ended up with more than me, but a couple of them ended up being pulled out, and he was still missing one. As a matter of fact, he may have been missing a second one. Matter of fact, he is. He's missing the second one, which is the one where I think is the trickiest one of them all. The other one that he is missing. And matter of fact, I'm going to email that one to him as we speak. That's something there. Yeah, there we go. Boom. Chew on that one, Dan Wismar, and we'll talk about it here in just a moment. But I think today's could get into who wins this thing. Whoever gets it right or wrong, we could end up with a massive tie. We'll see. Guys, you got one more chance. Get them in. Remember, email all your answers by noon tomorrow to thesportsfix@AOL.com. I'm going to talk some hoops here, some Vikings hoops, some Cavaliers hoops, all kinds of hoops. Got some Buckeyes hoops as well. But first, let's go to the phone lines here and give you guys a chance to get in on the conversation. Caller, you're up on the Sports Fix.
J-Rocc, how are you, my friend?
I'm good. How you doing? This is the mayor. How you doing, brother?
Good. Hey, very quickly, obviously LeBron had an off night. I think his ego kind of got in the way. People were chanting MVP for Harden, and he wanted to prove that he was indeed, the king. And I think, everybody has an off night, granted, but 3 from 11 from the foul line, 15 of 35 from the field. If I'm Kevin Love, after having 21 points in 3 quarters, I'm saying, hey, what about me? What about me?
You know what? Let me jump in because I agree. And you guys know, hey, look, I try to be fair here about LeBron. You know where I come from. I'm not going to just go, well, you missed a free. But you did. That stinks to lose like that. He took it like a man, I will say that. And fine, go out there and make him. Outside of just LeBron, that's one of the things that drives me nuts about today's basketball and NBA in general is that those little, great, you can soar above the rim. And I understand that that's flashy and that's what gets on SportsCenter. But, it drives me nuts when guys, the basics, when they can't make free throws and stuff, and it's trickling down because
73% free throw shooter, and he's 3 from 11.
Well, but not just that, just 73% is terrible. I mean, that's abysmal for an NBA guy. But you know what? Let me just real quick, Mayor. I do the high school ball, and honestly, that is trickling all the way down. I watched some of these games in the last few weeks where both teams combined. One game I saw 2 weeks ago I called where combined the teams together missed a dozen straight free throws before somebody made one, and you're just like, that is. But it rudimentally goes down because you don't see the guys hitting free throws on SportsCenter. They're throwing alley-oops. They're doing so. The fundamentals of the game get wore down. That just bothers me in general. But, you know, that's one of those where I'm not being unfair to say, hey, if you're you can say it's not cool. I say, hey, Michael Jordan walks to the line and makes those free throws 100% of the time.
You know what?
That's all.
Exactly what I said yesterday.
You know, I'm not being that guy.
Yesterday.
I'm just saying he would have won that game. But I'd rather lose that game in February, March than lose it in June, for sure. I will say this. I like the heart that the Cavaliers showed as a team without Kyrie Irving, but I can't go too far because Houston's missing a big piece as well. They're missing Dwight Howard. But Cavalier, I thought, you know, I like it because it shows as a whole the team when they're all together, and I'll stick with that. If nobody gets hurt, this weekend, though, showed why you got to hold your breath, not just Kyrie, but with anybody on this team, because they do come back down to the pack. But I think when you've got the whole of this team uninjured, I can't find a team in 7 games that's going to win 4 of those games against them. But obviously that equation changes when you're missing any key pieces like a Kyrie or a LeBron or whatever. And I'm with you about the end of yesterday's game. Now, I don't have a problem with the MVP. Yeah, I get getting bucked up and going one-on-one. Part of that I liked. I liked it defensively when LeBron took it upon himself to man up. He doesn't do that all the time anymore, man, where he pulls up on a guy and says, okay, I'm going to defend you. I liked that part of it, but it was, like you said, on the other side where you got 21 points in 3 quarters. Kevin Love is kind of feeling it here, and then he becomes lost man out. Everybody kind of did because it became a one-on-one game, and that is the only thing that I think that you play right into a team's hands when you do that, no matter who you are. Cavs, Houston, it doesn't matter.
But I can't believe Coach Blatt called isolation time after time after time. And really, it wasn't one-on-one. It was 1-on-5.
Oh, no, I know where you're coming from. I mean, I said, man, we're playing right into what they want us to do here, you know? And I did. Well, I'm with you there.
You know, the J-Rocc, I come from an era. I used to be the Cavaliers photographer back in the late 70s during, you know, the Miracle of Richfield. Yeah. And I'm telling you, if anybody were to sashay down that lane, either Thurmond or Jones, Bill Lambert, Clifford Ray would have sent them flying into the first row. Why is it that and I thought this is why we picked up Kendrick Perkins. This guy has the ability, and also as does Mozgov. Why doesn't every time Harden went running down the lane, why didn't somebody, say, hey, this ain't going to happen every time. I'm going to send your ass into the front row.
Oh, I know what you're saying. I thought it got chippy. Down there.
Yeah,
stretch,
but Thompson does a great job offensively rebounding, but he's a power forward playing center. Let's be honest.
Well, that's
Harden
where
had
Perkins
had no fear going down that lane. None.
Well, I don't like Tristan at the 5 either, and that's where Perkins, as he gets assimilated into things, is going to make a difference, because we were talking about it the other day. That, to me, is the key thing he brings besides the toughness, is sliding Tristan out of that center spot and making him strictly a power forward again, which is where he is most effective. I couldn't tell you why.
Why was Mozgov on the bench at crunch time when Harden had carte blanche going down the lane? He was leaving everybody that was trying to guard him basically in his dust, and it was layup after layup after layup. I mean,
I do wonder what you said. Why limited minutes? Mozgov only played about 18 minutes yesterday,
right.
So I don't know. There may be a reason for that we don't know about, because that's a relatively small amount of minutes for him, and that may be part of why some of these questions you're asking.
Also, Dellavedova is not a ample backup point guard. I mean, he
disagree.
tries hard.
I
He tries
disagree,
hard, but
man.
my God, he's the turnovers. He's afraid to shoot anymore. You can.
Well, he had two
you can
turnovers
definitely see
yesterday.
that.
I mean, he had 2 turnovers yesterday. I'll take what Delly gives you, though, because he doesn't need to score, which you have to have with the pieces that you have. You know, he got you 4 rebounds coming off the bench, or grabbed you 4 assists as well, grabbed a couple of steals. You know, I mean, Delly does the stuff that you need him to do. I don't know. I think he's serviceable enough as a backup to what you need there. But he sticks out more, obviously, when he played 42 minutes, Mayor. That's not good for J.R. Smith and Kevin Love and Kyrie Irving and LeBron James to be playing 42 minutes, let alone Delly. Delly should be playing 18 minutes a game or so. So
well, but
you
I
got to
mean,
think of it that.
You know,
By the way, do you realize Delly played?
I don't understand the rotation. I really don't understand the rotation. There are nights that Jones is in there for an extended period. You see Shumpert in there and then there are nights they don't even appear, or they're buried on the bench. I don't understand it.
Who didn't appear? Who didn't appear yesterday?
The only two that should be buried right now, to be honest, 3: Harris, Haywood, and Miller. Unfortunately, Miller has lost his outside shot.
Well, who else did you have, though? Because Perkins didn't play and Kyrie was hurt. So who else did you have? They played everybody else yesterday. I mean, they're.
But what I'm saying is when this Harden goes traipsing down the middle of the lane time after time after time, didn't somebody say, "Hey, Blatt, let's put an elbow to this guy"? I mean, you know what? I actually enjoyed the fact that it was a little chippy. I enjoyed that, but
Me too.
Those times, that one time, Harden and LeBron James got elbow to elbow and were dancing with each other, and there was no call. What the hell were these referees looking at? There must have been something wrong there, and they didn't call anything.
Oh, definitely some of that stuff, for sure.
But what I'm saying is we need, and I thought this is why we acquired Perkins, and maybe, yes, he needs to get more acclimated in the system, but it doesn't take a Rhodes scientist or a Rhodes scholar to put him in, have him send Harden to the first row, foul him hard, and send a message. We're not going to stand for this anymore.
I understand where you're coming from. Again, I don't know why.
I would even put you in there and say, okay, J-Rocc, beat him
Don't put
up.
me in there, man. Don't put me
Power
in there.
drive him. Power bomb him.
Don't put me in there, man. I'm good, but I'm with you, Mayor. I'm with you, my man. All right.
Okay, buddy.
Anything else?
I'm just more amazed anymore at the Browns, how they can continually shoot themselves in the foot. I hope
I don't even know what you say.
What
do you say about McCown? Seriously, what do you say about McCown?
What can you say about a guy 1-10 last year, 17-32 career record? I never thought I'd say this, but I long for the days now of Brian Hoyer.
I told you that's what even the Hoyer haters
you
are
did.
hitting me up going,
and
hey,
J-Rocc,
I'm sorry. I'll take Hoyer
you're
back.
Right. You were right.
I mean, seriously, even the people that are like, you were like totally done with Hoyer. You're not the only one. I've been hit up by dozens and dozens that said, man, I'm sorry. Can I have Brian Hoyer back? I'm sorry. I didn't know they were going to get worse.
I mean,
even
Mark Sanchez, Michael Vick, or even Luke.
Yeah.
Luke McGowan, his brother.
You know what they were thinking? Here's what they were thinking. Here's what they were thinking, Mayor. They were thinking the name's already on the back of that infamous jersey, so technically we don't have to add a 23rd name to the jersey or 24th name or whatever.
Have you ever seen a team shoot itself in the foot as much as this damn team does?
No, but this is different. This is not making it, to me, you make mistakes because you're stupid, and that's different. This is, there's something different about this, where this is like, you know what? We just are they consciously went this direction for all the reasons that I pointed out, man. I mean we knew
in last year's draft Gordon was going to be gone a substantial amount of time, and yet we don't draft a wide receiver. You know what? Now you have Brian Hartline, you have Ted Ginn Jr. out there. I doubt very much they'll even look at them.
Oh no, I think they're very hot on Ginn. I think Ginn and Hartline both may be heading this way. Ginn for sure. I definitely I
would take them both, but now we need somebody to throw them the ball.
Well, they have somebody, and his name is Johnny Manziel. I'm telling you now, man, if you think that they have no intention, maybe they might. Here's the thing with McCown. You know why McCown is perfect for them? Because they can have a fake competition at camp, and then Manziel can win. But if he doesn't, you can go, well, we're going to rely on the veteran. And here's the cool thing, is you can go back and forth all season long. It's not like Hoyer. See, with Hoyer, it was, hey, you either got to leave him as the quarterback or put him on the bench. You can't play yo-yo. With McCown, you can play yo-yo all season long. You can give Manziel 3 chances this season and try to sell tickets to 3 extra games because you can go, well, Johnny had a couple of extra games. But seriously, if Johnny cannot beat out Josh McCown, you guys seriously need to forget burning LeBron jerseys. You need to burn whatever of those number 2s that you bought because
I certainly would hope they don't
they
trade
think it's
up.
happening,
Both
bro.
of their
They
number
think it's
2s.
happening.
Mariana has shown against the Buckeyes, I mean, he's good, but he's a good college quarterback. That doesn't translate into the pros. And we don't need another baggage as does with, what's his name, from Florida State. We don't need that baggage either.
If I felt confident in the Browns' ability to do something, were they to move up and get those guys, then yes, I would take that tact because it's better than what you got. But all you're going to do is mess up some other young quarterback at this point, and then we're just going to end up with whatever. I'm telling you, I almost think the best case for the Browns is to go in with what they got because all you can do is just add more question. I don't know. Look, I can't defend this one, and I can't answer to this one, and all I can say is that they got the guy that they wanted. Take that however you wanted. They got the guy that they wanted.
Though.
They got the guy they wanted.
We have an offensive coordinator from, of all places,
I know.
the lowly Oakland Raiders who's never called an NFL play in his life.
I understand, Mayor.
We've got a quarterback coach who's younger than Luke McGowan, who Brian Hoyer beat out when he was playing with the Patriots.
I understand.
And we have a wide receiver coach called Joker. What more can we ask for?
I understand. All I can say is that I did not sign, draft, entertain, work out, or even encourage the signing of Josh McCown. So y'all can't hang this one on me. That's for sure.
No. I'm not.
No. I'm joking.
Matter of fact, I'm saying I was one of the people who said give Manziel a chance. Well, you know what? Watch what you ask for. You might
but
very
you know
well
what? It doesn't matter.
get it. And
it doesn't
by
matter,
God,
though, Mayor.
we got it. And now I am longing for the days of 10-6 Brian Hoyer as opposed to 1-10 Luke McClown.
I'm telling you, it doesn't matter because now as more
or Josh
and more,
McClown, whatever name
as more comes out, you sit here and go, if they had it their way, and this is the scary part, is the only thing that saved us from that last year is Mike Pettin. If they had their way in the front office, it would have been literally from week 2. It would have been Ty Detmer and Tim Couch all over again. I mean, I mentioned it earlier. Now, the word is that those text messages, they didn't start in week 8 or week 10, halfway through the season. They started halfway through game number 2. That means
what pearls
from
of
the
wisdom
very
could
beginning.
that goof have texted down after that ridiculous draft? What wisdom does Ray Farmer have? He's a buffoon.
The wisdom was that the reason that we're not doing better is that the franchise, the Lamborghini, is sitting in the garage while we've got this jalopy out driving the streets of Cleveland. And then they found out that jalopy was the only thing that would start, and the Lamborghini had been stripped down to its factory parts, and all that was left was 4 rims and a frame. But, they had to go test drive that Lamborghini.
J-Rocc, I'll say this. I thank God that there's an outlet on the radio such as this. I wouldn't be allowed to say such heinous things on the bought and paid for 92.3. You and I both know exactly what I mean. You dare say it. Mary Kay Cabot came out with one of the most ridiculous comments. She said, "Oh, it's a bridge. This Josh McClown is a bridge to the future."
You know what it is? It's the bridge that they want.
Is burning.
No, it's the bridge that they want. I said this 2 months ago, you guys. When the Browns use the term, when any other team uses the term bridge quarterback, they mean bridge 2 or 3 seasons together. The Browns want a bridge quarterback to get them from drafting Johnny to starting Johnny 6 months later. That was what Brian Hoyer was supposed to be. He overachieved and ticked everybody off in the process, so they had to move him out of the way so that now this next quarterback can bridge the gap from minicamp and rehab to starting opening day, brother. That is it in a nutshell. You can't tell me otherwise. And look, I'm not even going to say
that he would have when
brother,
we were 7-3.
I don't want to keep.
When we were 7-3, I wish Hoyer would have continued. But I will say this: once we lost Alex Mack, it was like everything changed overnight.
But I'll tell you what: when you hear more and more of the details, and I'm just saying, guys, look, the Brian Hoyer ship has sailed. So it's not like I'm sitting here fighting a battle anymore. But now that you guys that didn't like Brian Hoyer and the way things fell apart, hear about what was happening so early in the season. Could you imagine going to work every day, finding out little by little as this thing goes along that you're being undermined from the top down from day one? I know that he could have played better and shut everybody up, but it sure looks like there was a whole lot of reasons why he didn't play better that were perhaps being encouraged, forced upon, or tinkered with by the exact people he trusted to put him in a good situation. I'm just saying.
Well, I will say this also. Joe Thomas echoed that if Patton benched Hoyer, that they were going to lose the locker room. The first game Manziel played, I don't want to say they laid down, but they laid down. You and I both saw the same thing.
I think that the reason that they played the way they did is the same reason they would play today if they had to play today after what the Browns just did. I mean, look, man, I'm not making this stuff up. You aren't making up what you're seeing with your own 2 eyes out there. And if you think one doesn't affect the other, go ahead. But go ahead and tell me all these things don't matter. Tell me that chemistry doesn't matter, that leadership doesn't matter. Tell me all these things, and I'll just keep out pointing out reasons why you're wrong. Mayor, my man, I don't want to talk about the Browns anymore, man. So
no, that's enough. But you know, well, I will say this: when Irving, LeBron, and Love are all on the same page, even the Atlanta Hawks look somewhat beatable.
Absolutely.
I'll say this: if we can keep everybody healthy, and we can somehow incorporate Perkins, I see us going to the finals at the very least.
Oh, I said it yesterday. I've said it a lot, but yesterday I was watching that game. Even as we lost at the end, the way the Cavs played and really could have won that game at the end, I said, I'm telling you, when they're healthy, and I'll have this conversation with anybody right now, when they're healthy, show me a team that can win 4 out of 7 games. Now, I believe Houston, even with the Cavs at full peak, Houston can win a couple. Golden State, most definitely. Even San Antonio. All those good teams. But I don't see any team in the East that I think could win more than 2 games against the Cavs in a 7-game series if they're healthy the way they should be. And the same thing out West. I don't know that I can pick one team that I say can beat the Cavs in 7. I'm not talking about one game. I'm talking about in a 7-game series. But that this weekend showed why that term being healthy is so important, because just like that, you know, they're not good enough to overcome any of the 3 main pieces being out.
Right. Well, only thing I can say is this: we need Irving to be completely healthy. I do agree with occasionally giving James, you know, a night off here or there. I mean, it was a terrible loss, but I would rather, like you said, I'd rather lose to Houston now than Houston later.
I agree, exactly, and this'll put you in there. And still, for the guys, all the other guys that haven't been through playoff-type battles, this may not be it. Yesterday may have been the first time that Tristan Thompson finds himself in a game, that Delly finds himself in a game where they're throwing elbows and grabbing each other and throwing guys to the floor. They're just now feeling that next level for the first time. You know, that's going to be part of this too.
Can you imagine Bill Laimbeer and the Pistons' bad bad boys, Radman, allowing Harden or anybody. They used to beat the hell out of anybody that comes. I'll never forget. Mark Price was trotting down, the court. Bill Lambier gave him an elbow right, to the forehead.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. I know what you're talking about.
It would have made you proud.
I'll tell you what. Matter of fact, as you bring that up, I'm going to wrap up with this. I'm going to bring it up in the next segment. But you just reminded me, talking about you and your photography of the early days of the Cavs. I picked up a treasure over the weekend at the used bookstore. I picked up the 25th anniversary book about the Cavs that they did back in '94, from Fitch to Fratello. And I was texting Jonathan Knight, and he goes, "Man, that's still my favorite Cavs book. It tells all." I knew most of the stories that are in there, but I literally found myself laughing, doubled over in laughter at some of the ridiculousness that went down in the first decade of that franchise's existence, and even on into the 80s. But man, that's a good one. I highly recommend, if you're a Cavs fan, that you. Matter of fact, I'm having so much fun reading it. I'm almost done with it now. That I am definitely doing another trivia contest come playoff time. We're gonna do a Cavs trivia contest because I found a gold mine of stuff that people. I guarantee you, people have no idea some of this stuff even happened here in their hometown, and it's amazing. But I know because you were around. But man, but that's a great book. Burt Graff and I can't think of who his co-author was on that book, but they put it together. And it's a great one. Well, no, it wasn't Terry Pluto. It was a guy from the News Herald, and I'm sorry, I can't remember his name right now. But it came out in '94. It was the right as they were opening the Gund Arena at that time, and it was right as they were leaving the
something.
Coliseum.
I will forever long to the days of the Coliseum. You didn't have to manufacture noise or effects.
But they'd still be doing it.
And rocked.
You know what though? I say the same thing. I know what you're coming from, but they'd still be doing it. They don't do it because they have to. It's the way of the NBA now. They pump that into all the stadiums. So even if the Coliseum was still here, they'd still be pumping that crap, and they'd have the dance. But I'll tell you what, talking about that, it's one of the things I got to chuckling on is I know that Stepien now is a dirty word in Cleveland, but even though he was a goofball and it was all minor league tchotchke stuff, he was ahead of the times when it comes to the things that the NBA did, such as the cheerleaders. He wanted them to be the teddy bears, but
the cheerleaders. Well, his daughter was the lead.
Was one of them. Yeah, I
know.
know.
Of the teddy bear. Matter of fact, the SOB is the one that fired me as the photographer because he brought his own people in.
Oh, I know. I've heard all kinds of things over the years, but I will say that some of the things that he was mocked for, it's like it was like reading the movie Semi-Pro, but except it's the Cavaliers and it's in real life with all these crazy promotions.
He hired a softball coach to coach the team.
He was the general manager, and then he became the coach of the team for a couple of weeks. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, he was the coach of his softball team. I recommend you guys, if you don't know what we're talking about, this is all stuff in Cavs team history. It's good stuff. All right, Mayor, I got to keep it moving. Thanks, my man.
Okay, buddy.
You got it. Good phone call, as always, you guys. It's called Cavs from Fitch to Fratello. If you guys get a chance to go find it, it's one of those lost treasures out there. I picked that one up over the weekend. What else? Oh, I picked up the Cleveland sports lists that Greg Brinda and Bill Livingston put together, too. That one, I haven't even started on it yet, but I already saw some interesting stuff in it. But I'll tell you, that Cavs one, man, just even a guy that I think I know a lot about the history of the teams. For a guy my age, I think I'm definitely way ahead of the curve. But, man, I learned all kinds of stuff I didn't know there, man. And so, anyways, that's part of the reason we do things like the Tribe Trivia Challenge, by the way, is because I want you guys to learn stuff. Go, man, wow, I had no idea that this happened or that happened or that all these guys broadcasted for both the Indians and the Browns, et cetera, and so forth. So, it must be comedy time on ESPN because I just got a alert across my phone. It's sitting at the top of my phone. Josh McCown expects to be the Browns starting quarterback next year. A, that's a sad sentence. B, that's an even sadder sentence when you read it a second time. What is sadder about that? The fact that it's plausible that he could think he's going to be the starting quarterback, or the fact that it's plausible he could actually be the starting quarterback? Either one of those is a a frightening thought, man. But there's your headline right there coming across your TV, guys. All right, getting back to what we were talking about. Mayor took me off a little bit about the Browns. I don't want to talk about them. Let's talk about the stuff from the weekend. Again, the Cavs, tough couple of losses, and I think we saw Friday nights coming as they still, without LeBron and without Kyrie Irving, Friday night nearly beat Indiana, let it go down the stretch at the end, and that is what it is. You're sitting your top two guys. Most teams would be in the same situation there, so I'm not incredibly... Matter of fact, JK and I Friday were kind of thinking it would go that way with the Friday night game against Indiana. Pacers have lucked into two of those this year with the Cavs so far. But Sunday was the big one. Kyrie, people were hopeful that he would be back out there yesterday. He wasn't. He is supposed to be back tomorrow. So Cavaliers in Houston, again, I was chippy. They hooked up. I felt for the first time some of that real competitiveness, that playoff level, again, with LeBron. I don't like the way some of it happened offensively down at the end, but I like him running up, taking Harden and saying, I'm going to guard him. Again, I think so many of the guys today don't take pride in that anymore, getting up and saying, this is my guy, and I'm going to stop him from scoring. It's not just about what I do on the other end. So I got into that, man. They were hooking it up, and I thought if the Cavaliers could play Houston like that, the way they did in the situation they were in, and without Kyrie, bodes pretty well for the future. And you like to see a team in a fight like that. You hate to see, hey, look, man, it's not unfair to say you hate to see your guy miss 2 free throws at the end like that. That's, best player in the game or whatever people want to call him. You don't do that. You can't do that. Those are free throws, man. But, I'll tell you what, man, just in general, like I said, free throw shooting drives me crazy, but 3 for 11, it's hard to defend. But I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, well, he's the worst. He just, he definitely shot himself in the foot there. But that also makes me feel halfway decent about yesterday, because I don't think that happens again. I mean, how many 3 of 11 at the free throw line games has LeBron had? I don't know. He's a career 75% shooter or whatever, so I'm guessing not many. I'm guessing that's not going to happen a million times again. So when things are a 1 or 2 off, you don't blow the roof off about it, but let's hope it doesn't happen again. And I'd still rather lose to Houston now like this than they did. And, LeBron, a good stat line overall. It took him 35 shots to put it up. I thought he was doing, here's the difference, is at one point I was keeping track. He was 12 of 24. He was shooting 50%. I was all right with that. I'm like, hey, he should be putting up 24 shots. We got no Kyrie here in this game. Since then, though, final stretch of the game, he ended at 15 for 35. So 3 of 11 for the final stretch of the game, much like 3 of 11 at the free throw line. But 12 of 24 up through the final stretch of the game. And then once you add the fourth quarter in, only goes 3 of 11 in that final stretch. That hurt you a little bit. And again, it felt like we were playing right into the plan there, and still almost came away and stole one. That's why you got to feel good about that. On the road, shorthanded, still almost took it away. Lost the way you did. You got to bounce back and not let it happen again. And now the Cavaliers, they've lost, they lost both of them here this weekend. That being said, you've still won 18 of 22 games. There's still, you can easily look at this weekend. I don't want to do the whole, it's excusable, but look at the big picture. Let's see how they bounce back. As I said, Kyrie should be back Tuesday. At least that is the expectation for the Cavaliers there. So we'll see what happens. Back home, got one in the middle of this road trip with Boston before you head right back out. And here's a tough stretch, guys, coming this weekend. Starting tomorrow, Cavaliers have another stretch of 4 and 5 games. And I'm not one of those guys that feels incredibly bad for, millionaires. You got to work hard. But 4 and 5 games is tough, especially when 2 of them are at home, 2 of them are on the road, and they're all over the place. Cavaliers tomorrow are at home, taking on Boston at the Q. Then you jump right in a plane and jump over a little skip flight to Toronto for Wednesday night's game against the Raptors. You've got Thursday off to travel to Atlanta. You've got the Hawks on Friday, which is a big one there, as you've got a couple of back-to-back big games with the Eastern Conference teams. You got Toronto, follow that up with Atlanta on Friday, and then you come right back to Cleveland Saturday. Here's another good one. You've got Phoenix coming to the Q. Then next week, you get a couple days off, and then you've got those Western Conference teams in Dallas and San Antonio, then Miami. So, there's a lot of tests here, but this next 4 and 5 game stretch is pretty tough. So that's part of the reason why I think they looked at that coming and erred on the side of caution as well with Kyrie this weekend and keeping him out the extra game because you knew you got 4 and 5 coming up. So that's a tough stretch. I mean, let's see, you were in Houston yesterday, so you're traveling back to Cleveland here this morning or late last night, early this morning. You're back to Cleveland on Monday. You stay there for your game on Tuesday, fly to Toronto, head over border, over customs, into Canada on Wednesday. You come all the way down to Atlanta for your game Thursday to play on Friday. Then you shoot back up to Cleveland for the end game of that as you take on Phoenix at the Q. It's the life of an NBA player, but that's a little bit of a stretch here this week. So Cavaliers err on the side of caution. They kept Kyrie out, sat LeBron out Friday night, and hopefully they've got the full core back, and we get to see a little more Kendrick Perkins tomorrow night. And I got a feeling Perk's going to want to play anyway against his old compatriots over there as Boston comes down to the Q for that one tomorrow. But bottom line, 0 for 2 over the weekend for the Cavaliers, but still, you've got to feel relatively good about coming out of it the way you did, considering you were shorthanded and very shorthanded on Friday all weekend long. Cavaliers day off. We'll get set with Boston tomorrow. Talk about that. Also over the weekend, a little tough one on Friday night for the CSU Vikings, and because of that, Vikings lost a chance to get the double bye in the Horizon League tournament that starts tomorrow. Vikings now find themselves they still ended up with a first-round bye by finishing in the top 4. 1 and 2 get the double bye, 3 and 4 get the single bye, and then everybody else has to play the entire tournament through. So they do have the single bye. Still could have made themselves better as they lost. I was watching that game too, and for the longest time, the Vikings could not score. Valpo was pulling away. I think at one point it was 30. They were up 13 or 14. Vikings were stuck on 20 points for the 14. Yeah, Vikings were stuck on 20 for the longest. I believe it was 34-20 at that point. Vikes started to come back. They did a good job to get it close down the stretch. It wasn't as close as the final score. 56-53 was the final, but Trey Lewis sunk a three-pointer at the buzzer that turned a 6-point game into a 3-point game, but it was a no time left kind of a deal, so that was just points to put on the scoreboard statistically. Because of that, Vikings dropped to 17-13 to finish the regular season. They finished Horizon League play at 11-5. Valpo with the victory clinched the Horizon League title at 13-3, and because of the way the weekend played out, Vikings ended up with the number 4 seed in the Horizon League tournament. So the way this is going to go down now, as you look at the breakdown of the bracket, the Vikings now will sit in Valpo, as Valpo is going to host the second and third rounds of the tournament, and then, of course, the final is at the home of the highest remaining seed in the tournament. But Valparaiso is going to host Cleveland State's tournament hopes. Vikings are going to sit there waiting for the winner of tomorrow night's game, Youngstown State at Detroit. And hey, remember, Detroit knocked off Valpo and the Vikings in the last, week and a half of the season or so. So Detroit can definitely come up and get you. That's going to be a tough one to watch. Youngstown State, the Penguins, are the 8th seed. Detroit is the 5th seed. Those teams are going to play tomorrow night at 7. And then on Friday, the winner of that game takes on the Vikings. Vikings, the 4th-rated team in the tournament, 4th-seeded team. That game will be at 9:30 on Friday night. And then the winner of that game, if the Vikings are victorious, will go on to play Valpo. So it would be a rematch with Valpo, who's had a strong season, as we know, at home. Vikings weren't able to beat them in Cleveland. Now, if the Vikings are going to want to advance in the tournament, if they can get past their first matchup, they will have to beat Valpo at home. That one would be the following day on Saturday. Championship for the Horizon League tournament will be 1 week from tomorrow, and that will determine who gets the automatic bid into March Madness and the NCAA tournament. It's that time. Tournaments are coming and going down and all of that. Buckeyes, too. Let's take a break. Let's get the news here. Let's get Dan Wismar in on the conversation and pick up right there. We'll talk some more March Madness stuff, talk about the Buckeyes. They had a game over the weekend. Buckeyes was one of the teams that took care of business over the weekend. We'll talk some hoops here. We'll talk some spring training and Indians and all of that. Maybe a little Josh McCown, who knows, with my man Dan Wismar coming up next after the news here on the Sports Fix.
Coming on, gotta make it happen. Come on, Cavs. Gotta make it happen. Come on,
You unlock this door with the key of imagination. Beyond it is another dimension. A dimension of sound. A dimension of mind. You're moving into a land of both shadow and substance, of things and ideas. You've just crossed over into...
The Sports Fix. We'll be right back. It's an addiction. The Sports Fix. We'll be right back.
Today on Save on Taxes, we ask 100 people what costs less than filing your taxes with IRS Free File.
Car seat. Oh, a pair of shoes.
The correct answer is nothing. When you use Free File, you get brand name software, tax prep, e-filing, and help with the new healthcare provisions, all for free.
So, did we win anything?
Everybody wins. freefile.irs.gov. It's fast, it's safe, it's free.
Business owners and professionals, do you want to take your business, your product, your team, your event to the next level? You want to advertise right here with the Sports Fix. Our listeners are among the most loyal listeners, terrestrial or internet. The Sports Fix universe is not only the radio show, but tens of thousands of fans on Facebook and Twitter. Email me, Jerry Myers, thesportsfix@AOL.com. That's thesportsfix@AOL.com. And let me help you swing for the fences and hit it out of the park right here on the Sports Fix. Whether it's an oil change or a new set of tires, Quick Lane at Valley Ford Truck has you covered for your car care needs. They're your neighborhood quick service experts. They also offer a low price tire guarantee. Choose from 13 brands, and if you find the same tires at a lower price within 30 days, Quick Lane at Valley Ford will refund the difference. 5715 Canal Road, right under the 480 bridge in Valley View. Come see why life is better in the Quick Lane. quicklane.com/Valley Ford Truck.
Portions of the Sports Fix brought to you by Signs and Ship, the official printing source of the Sports Fix. Locations in Ohio, Pennsylvania, Virginia, and Florida. Find out more at signsandship.com.
News break.
Good morning, I'm Doug Brown with breaking news from the NFL. ESPN NFL insider Adam Schefter reports the Broncos will use the franchise tag on wideout Demaryius Thomas, and the Chiefs will tag linebacker Justin Houston. The Lions tweet today they will not tag defensive lineman Ndamukong Suh. Today is the deadline at 4 p.m. Eastern for players to use their tags. Packers cornerback Jarrett Bush charged with disorderly conduct while under the influence after his arrest Sunday. Bush is free on $1,600 bail. He could become a free agent next week. ESPN's Mark Stein reports the 76ers waived JaVale McGee, whom they got in a trade with the Nuggets at the deadline. Big Monday in college basketball, a doubleheader on ESPN tipping off at 7 Eastern with number 2 Virginia at Syracuse, followed by 16th-ranked Oklahoma at number 12 Iowa. At 7 Eastern on ESPNU, it's number 19 Baylor at Texas. Final round of the Honda Classic in Florida. Patrick Reed, Padraig Harrington, and Daniel Berger tied for the lead at 6 under par.
The John R. Wooden Award presented by Wendy's recognizes the country's top collegiate basketball players. Go to ESPN.com and search Wooden Watch for more information on the award and the nominees.
You're listening to the Sports Fix.
Welcome back to the Sports Fix, live across the Sports Fix radio network as we get ready to roll on here, hour 2. I'll tell you what, they got you guys out there playing Columbo, sleuthing it up for me. I do believe that we've even more now worked on our trivia question. It appears, and I've done some cross-checking during the break, there are 11, as the total that I've got here. There are 11 broadcasters who broadcasted for the Cleveland Indians, who have also at some point done work for either the Browns or the Cavaliers as official broadcasters of the team on TV and radio. I did say that the question was 8, so I'm going to leave the question at 8. But you now have 11 potential names to put in there. So, but what I'll do is I'll just everything over. That's going to be my tiebreaker there, I believe. No, you know what? We're going for the gusto, man. See, but if people heard only 8 earlier, you guys are hearing the real life mental process going here. Now I'm in a dilemma. I think I'm still gonna take 8 names here for the correct answer. But there are 11. I don't know. I'll have to ask Dan what he thinks. If Dan wants to be a taskmaster, then we're going to have to take the original list. So your fate is in Dan Wismar's hand. Dan's been helping me track this down. It's because of him that I realized that the answer is 11. There are 11 people. Cross-checking those records is tough, man. There are 11 at our count that have done 2 of the 3 there. And so we'll talk about that some more in just a minute for you that are part of the Tribe Trivia Challenge. Welcome back in, guys. Let's get Dan Wismar on the phone. We'll talk some Tribe and some Cavs and some Browns. Who knows what we're going to talk about here with Dan Wismar. Always fun. You guys keep it going with us on Facebook and Twitter. Facebook.com/TheSportsFix. Tweet with us at TheSportsFix. CLE. Email us, TheSportsFix@AOL.com. Going to the phones. Dan Wismar. Dan, how you doing this afternoon?
I'm doing pretty good, Jerry. Fighting a little bit of a head cold, and so excuse the occasional sniffle or cough, but I'm doing okay, all things considered. That your list is growing, and I'm glad I could help with that. Maybe it's not really much help, but I think maybe you've got to give people credit for 8 and give them credit for the right answer. Maybe you use anything over 8 as a tiebreaker.
That's what I was thinking.
That's something that you could possibly do if you get 9, 10, and 11. Maybe that'll be something you need to break a tie.
Well, because the only thing I'm thinking is not that people hang up before we start talking to Dan Wismar, but it was almost an hour ago that I read the original question. So perhaps somebody only listens to the first hour of the show, only listens to so much. They got the question and they jumped out. They're going to send me an answer with 8, and then I think it'd be unfair to penalize them because of my mistake. So I think we're.
I think you're right. And once they got 8, they stopped looking.
Exactly. I will say
you got to give them credit for that.
Yeah, and I think we got it now. I actually re-emailed you during the break, the revised list with what you sent to me, and I think we've got it. I'm pretty sure now. And I found out what the mistake was on my end. It was that the listings that I was using were incomplete from the teams, and that's why you cross-checked on individual Wikipedia, and I said, yeah, but my list isn't showing this. Then I figured out why my list wasn't showing it. So now it appears to make sense. And there's the one. Now, there's the one that I think nobody will have ever heard of, but then there's the one that people will go, when did he do that? Because he's somebody that everybody knows very well, and he's literally 3 decades ago involved in a completely different sport. And I think you know who I'm talking about.
For 1 year, yeah.
Like, where did that come from, you know?
Yeah, I never would have come up with that one off the top of my head. I was able to rattle off about 6 or 7 of them.
You did. You nailed almost all of them.
Had to go digging for the rest of them. But, yeah, and there's a couple of guys, too, Jerry, that if you were going to count the studio host or whatever, that kind of a role, that you'd have to add in a couple more.
You're right. I'm strictly going
there as hey, you could make a case for this guy and this guy too if you're willing to count the
strictly,
he's not one of them, but the guy that's in a role like a Campy Russell or someone like that who's not really a play-by-play guy, but he's sitting there at the studio level.
I know. So, I thought about that, but because of the post-game shows, like you said, I thought about it. But I said, man, we got to stick, because then it's easier. At least you can go to the official lists of who the broadcast teams were on TV and radio, because otherwise, like you said, then you start getting up. Then the list exponentially gets bigger, because that's where I had trouble first.
The thing that was surprising to me when I went looking, I figured a lot of them would be old-timer guys, way back, and it's really not.
No.
It's really much more modern era than it was.
Isn't there some
back
weird
back in the early days?
And I'll tell you what, this guy, I'm not going to list it. I won't say his name, but he's here. There's some weird things you'll find when you answer this question, because there's one guy who only called games in the complete opposite of the sport that he was in this town, and never called games for the actual thing that he did or the team that he played for. I'm like, how is that possible? Do you know who I'm referring to there?
Actually, no, I don't know who you're referring to there. But anyway.
You know what? He's not part of the question. I'll throw this out there. He's not part of the question, so I'll go ahead and throw this out here. Reggie Rucker. Reggie Rucker is
did
the
baseball.
books.
Yeah,
yes,
he
for
did
baseball.
He did Indians games,
and
didn't he?
did nothing officially with the Browns. I mean, yeah, he's done the pregame shows and stuff on TV, but isn't that a trip that a Browns player ends up being a broadcaster for the Indians and never for football or for the Browns?
Yeah, and I might add that he was terrible.
I couldn't tell you. I didn't live through the 83, 84 seasons. I was still a youngster at that time, so
no
I don't know.
No offense, Reggie. No offense, Reggie. You were awful.
But isn't that awkward? Like, how does the football player end up doing the baseball TV, you know?
Yeah, that is strange. Anyway, it's a good question and got me digging and looking and, occupied me for a good half hour there, so that was fun.
So there's another one, because some of you are probably going to, Reggie Rucker. Yeah, that one's not even one of the 11 that we found out here, man. So sorry about that. It'll be interesting to see. Again, if you're wondering what we're talking about, question 10 in the Tribe Trivia Challenge. Final question for today is, as we've now discovered, there have been 11 Cleveland Indians broadcasters, and I'm talking about the official team broadcasters on radio and TV. There have been 11 of those gentlemen who have also done at least one season for either the Cavs or the Browns over the course of their career. Since we asked for 8 at the beginning of the show, that is still the question. Name me 8 of them, but there are 11 that you could give me. And if you know all 11, give me all 11, because I will count the extra 3 as bonus if we have a tiebreaker coming here at the end, which is very possible depending on today's question. So that's a good, and again, these are all ones that, this one here is more than just a Google search. This one takes at least 3 Google searches and cross-checking amongst 3 different groupings of people. So it's going to do a little work, but it's something, again, that you perhaps learn and go, wow. That to me is the whole point of doing this. I don't know if you heard me talking to the mayor right before the break, but I'm doing this again for the Cavs because I was mentioning picking up that Cavaliers 25th anniversary book over the weekend and just dying at the stories that filled in the gaps of stuff that I didn't know about. I don't know if you've ever read it before, but it is chock full of things. You just go, man, how does this franchise still exist? It gives you more appreciation for the fact that Cleveland still has a basketball team when you look at the infancy and even then the Ted Stepien years and some of the ridiculousness. But this was a great book done in '94 about the first 25 years of the Cavs franchise, from Fitch to Fratello.
It is kind of hard to believe that the team's still in town after Ted Stepien, when the league basically had to step in and stop him from trading players without the league approval because he was such a stooge. And I just, when he traded 2 first-rounders for Mike Bratz, that's when I just about gave up right there. But
I knew that we had traded a lot, right? And I knew that that's why that rule came, but I didn't realize that we gave the Dallas Mavericks our first-round pick in 4 consecutive seasons. From 84 to 87, the Dallas Mavericks owned every Cavaliers first-round draft pick, man.
Well, that's when they had to make the Stepien rule, and to
isn't
this
that
day,
crazy?
that's what it's called. And you cannot trade your first-round pick. That's why the Cavs can't trade their pick this year.
Right, absolutely. That rule still exists.
That goes back to Ted Stepien and his utter incompetence. So that was a dark era. And
Joe Tate,
so, like I said, it's amazing that the franchise survived his ownership.
I'll tell you, Joe Tate, full of stories in that one, and we've got to talk to him before. But man, he talked about that. He said one day he gets a call from the commissioner's office right when the '82 when the All-Star game was coming here to Cleveland, and he's never been called there before, and he just gets a call that says, the commissioner wants to see you immediately. Please come. And he's like, what did I do? I'm about to get in trouble, And he walks in and they go, what kind of clown show is going on in Cleveland? Because we're getting ready to bring the All-Star game there, and we can't have this guy embarrassing us with this, that, and the other thing. And, 3-4 hours later, Joe Tate confirmed all their fears and then some. And about 2 minutes later, the NBA took over all the preparations for the All-Star game that year because they were afraid that you were going to have, the beer can eating guy at the airports.
That's amazing, and it tells you what kind of high regard the league held Joe Tate in.
Yeah.
That he would be the guy at broadcaster, the guy that they would call to get the inside stuff on what was going on. So, yeah, obviously he was highly regarded by the front office as well as by everybody around here.
Everybody except his boss, who thought that he was telling too many bad things about the team, man. That's what I love, man. And I get that too. Hey, look, I do the play-by-play, and sometimes it's funny. You should have seen the first. This is totally off topic, but we'll pick like a player of the game. And my first couple of games, I would want to pick like the player of the game, like the actual player of the game. They're like, nah, he plays for the other school. I'm like, so? He ran for 500 yards. I mean, he was the best player in this game and the other games this weekend, too. And he goes, nah, we like to pick the ones from the home school. And I'm like, well, it's not the player of the game. It's the player of the home school, But anyways, and they finally said, you know what? You're right. Pick whoever you want. Because I was like, man, I'm not playing this. Come on, it's high school football. Can't I just pick the best player of the game? And we used to have a joking argument about it, me and the color commentator guy. But it's that same thought process. Like, who cares if it's the homer? But anyways, that was one of the biggest things with Stepien and Tate was he hated that he would go out there and admit when the team is bad. I love it. Joe Tate has so much respect for me as a broadcaster. And then, his first conversation with Ted Stepien, he said, "You have a terrible team. You'll be lucky if you win 30 games. This is an awful team." And he was taken aback that the announcer wouldn't look at him and say, you have a world championship team here. He couldn't believe that Joe Tate would look at him and tell him, you have a god-awful team, and this is going to be a terrible season.
And worse than that, from Stepien's standpoint, is that Joe Tate would not only say it to Stepien's face, but he would say it on the air, on broadcast.
Yeah.
So he told it like it was, and like it, the way it was not a pretty picture, and you have to admire Tate always for never pulling his punches that way.
Radio station to get rid of him. He said, you know what? I'll get rid of the people that hear something, man. Ridiculousness. But I got to tell you, funny stuff when you look back here. Some of it you just sit there and go, how did this franchise survive? Because they very well could have been washed away asunder some of the stuff that happened there. It really makes you appreciate sitting back now and holding parades in October out in front of the queue doesn't seem so ridiculous because it's come a long way to where we're at now, brother.
Yeah, that's true. And just while we're on the Cavs subject, I just wanted to say, one thing about LeBron yesterday, and I like how he owned it afterwards on Twitter.
Yep.
I mean, within an hour after the game, he's on Twitter saying, "Hey, man, I tripped it up. I tripped up the team. I didn't do it. I didn't come through." And he also said, and it's something that a lot of people said after that game, it won't happen again. And I believe that it won't happen again. Because the odds against him going 3 for 11 at the free throw line are pretty long, but just focus, concentration, whatever you want to call it. I just appreciate the fact that he owned it. He took it on himself. That's what a team leader does. He didn't duck the media and came out and basically said, "This one's on me, guys," and it's not going to happen again. So you got to respect that. Everybody has one of those days. And it wasn't just the free throws, was it, Jerry? I mean, he wasn't finishing at the rim. I thought first of all, I thought the game was terribly officiated, even though I'll cop to a bias for the local team, of course, and I don't always see it totally objectively, but I'll tell you, we were not getting any calls. I mean, LeBron going to the basket. Every time he'd go to the basket, he's got guys hanging on him, hacking on him, and he just was not getting any calls. He finishes 9 out of 10 times if he doesn't have someone hacking his arms, and we just were not getting any calls, and we were getting touch fouls on the other end. And I don't think I'm saying that as totally a biased observer. I mean, everybody was saying that. Everybody on Twitter was seeing the same game and looking at it the same way, going, what in the world are these officials doing?
Dan, there was one sequence speaking exactly about what you're talking about where I watched the Cavs come down one end and LeBron drove to the hoop and he had a relatively tough path to get there, missed the layup, and some of those were just rimming in and out on him. But they come back down the other way, and I'm telling you, I'm talking about horrible officiating, and I'm trying not to be that guy either. But I'm watching the game, and I cannot for the life of me remember who it was that took the shot. It was about a 10, 12-foot jumper or whatever. And literally the ball rims in and out. And as it's popping out, then they decide to blow the whistle on the foul. And I'm like, come on, man. You can't let them play great defense all the way down, force a shot, it misses, and you knew that they waited to see if the shot went off before they called the foul on it. And then you look at the replay, and there's no foul. And there was what was the one on J.R. Smith where the guy runs into him and not the other way around, and they called the foul on J.R. Smith on a 3, and you're like, come on, man. So, yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah, right. And then same thing with the one long outlet pass by Love to J.R. Smith. He gets bumped and immediately goes up and throws the ball in the hoop, and they don't even give him a continuation call on it. You know, they call it before the shot, and just some ridiculousness like that just – you say to yourself, man, it's just keep the Houston crowd happy here. But
that happens.
I agree with your caller earlier. You've got to have some enforcer, especially on a guy like Harden, who you know is going to just take it to the rack. You've got to have somebody out there that's going to knock him on his butt. At least tell him, hey, if you're going to come down in there, you're going to be picking yourself up off the floor. And that enforced a little bit earlier in the game.
The kick in the nether region by Harden there, man. I was shocked that wasn't something. Like, I'm like, that's nothing? Like, we're just going to act like that didn't happen. And then you had the not that it was on the same level, but when they got hooked up arm in arm late in the fourth quarter, at one point, I believe Harden took about 5 steps in that while they were dragging each other around, and the officials just watching it as the shot clock's expiring, and I'm like, so that's not a travel, a foul on us, a foul on them? That's just two guys, man. Like, what was going on? But yeah, man, definitely swallowed some whistles there, and I thought a little bit more. But you have to. Number one, the Cavs aren't the team to get those yet. I don't care if LeBron plays for us or not. The Cavaliers won 30 games last year. They've won 25 the year before. The Cavs got to earn those calls on the road. And, not that Houston's done all that either, but at least they've done a little bit more in the last few years than the Cavs. And you're going to have that in the playoffs. Whether you go to Atlanta, go to Chicago, wherever, if you end up in the West at the end, you're going to have hostile crowds and bad officiating. So I still, and I'm not trying to be the happy homer, but I like the fact that they were 2 missed free throws away from winning this one on the road without Kyrie Irving. I mean, that kind of made me feel good coming out of a loss.
Sure, you have to feel okay about it. Well, and on the kick, I mean, and again, it's a typical example of how LeBron, the veteran, dealt with the situation after the game. I don't know if you heard what he said, and obviously they did call the technical on it. That wasn't a situation where they swallowed the whistle. And I think we haven't heard the last of it. I think Harden will probably.
No, but I thought it was a flagrant, is what I meant. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, I see what you're saying. It should have been a flagrant instead of a T, or in addition to a T or whatever. But after the game, LeBron's comment was, "It sure wasn't a basketball play." It wasn't a basketball play, and I think he said something too about, we'll see how the league addresses it, or something to that effect. But I thought that was a pretty classy response to it. Yeah, that wasn't a basketball play, but just the way that the veteran kind of shrugs it off. Did get the T and of course missed it, but that was there. And I understand playoff basketball. I understand homer refereeing. And hopefully when it gets to the playoffs, they do let a lot of stuff go, let the physical play be a little bit more, lenient on that. But it's got to be consistent at both ends of the court, and that's what we weren't seeing yesterday. And again, don't want to be a whiner about it because you do have to earn it. But boy, it sure was a different environment for the kind of rough play that was being allowed at one end of the court versus the other.
And you know what? When you talk about guys like James Jones in the locker room, I like what he said, because this is the kind of thing you have to tell guys, like the young guys that lose this game. You don't even get in a funk after you lose a game like this. He said, you can win games in this league and not compete, but that's fool's gold. It's a recipe for disaster in the NBA. Or you lose games, but you compete and you set the habits that you need when the games mean something. He said, not saying this game is not meaningful, but you know what he's talking about. He's talking about the playoffs, and that's a great point, is I'd much rather lose a fight. And like I said earlier when Mayer was calling, Delly, these guys, Thompson, these guys have never even been in the battles where it's like I mean, what have they been fighting to win 34 games? You know what I mean? This is the first time these guys have been in games where guys are throwing you around and throwing karate kicks and all of those things. I'm joking, but they need to be in that and realize how to. I'd rather you lose it at the end and go, damn, here's what we got to do to win in February, because then they'll be in this situation again in May or June and pull through with that. So that's all part of it too. That's why I'm not, you'd like to win it, but it is February. Well, it's March now, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, that's true. And the game Friday night was even more of a mismatch, of course, and just the fact that I like the way the team hung in,
they almost
hard
won
all the way, and really, again, down 6 late in the game. James Jones gets the ball stolen from him from behind, with a minute and some change left to go, with a chance to cut the lead to 2 or to 4 or 3. And to me, that was a turning point. That's when the game officially was lost, right there, when he kind of allowed himself to be stripped of the ball in the forecourt. To be even that close was kind of remarkable, based on A, who we were missing, and B, what an ugly game it had been from our standpoint. They just had not played very well, even though they were missing both LeBron and Kyrie. They had not played well, and still found themselves within 6 with a minute to go, or a minute and a half or so, on the road on the second night of a back-to-back, et cetera. So that was also encouraging to me, even though it was kind of an ugly loss.
Well, yeah, Dan, when you look back to Friday night, you're missing Kyrie, you're missing LeBron, and again, not making excuses, but not just to look at the final score. Okay, you lost by a half a dozen or 7 points or whatever, but really, to me, the only thing the Cavaliers lost on Friday night was that second quarter. I mean, and again, a little rough in the third quarter too, but man, they just got blown out of the water. Played so well to start that thing. And they started it and ended it well, but there's another one. You come out and you go, okay, we see where we gave this one away. It got ugly, as you said, and they still had a chance there down the stretch to win it without both of your top guys, which is also saying something, man. So you can come out of this weekend, boo-hooing about it if you want, or you come out of it and you go, the key is let's get everybody healthy, get everybody back. And I'm hoping tomorrow Kyrie's back. They got 4 and 5 coming up here, and it'll be a good test. You've got a couple of Eastern Conference tests coming up, then a couple of Western Conference ones right after that. And this is the time of year you want them. I'm almost glad that the schedule worked out the way it did for the Cavs, where they had a stretch of some games that they should win, and they were able to kind of get that chemistry so that that was kind of there now. Now you're hitting some more challenges, but you're a little more ready for it. So we get a better measurement of where the Cavs are so far.
Yeah, that's true. And the other nice thing about it is that the teams that you're battling with for that number 2 spot, essentially Toronto and Chicago, they're hitting a little bit of a tough patch too. And it's not like we're losing a lot of ground when we take a couple of L's. Chicago hasn't been playing all that great, and the prospects for them going forward obviously are diminished without Rose. And Toronto's been coming back to the pack a little bit too. They already kind of blew by Washington, and Washington looks like they're fading fast. But it looks like you've got still a clear path and a good opportunity to land the number 2 seed, and that's where you want to end up. I think it's a pipe dream to think you're going to catch Atlanta unless they really go in the tank. So you're fighting for the number 2, and I still think the chances are very good that you're going to get there.
Yeah, for sure. You're a game back of the number 2. I mean, Toronto, Chicago, and Cleveland are a game separated from 2 to 4. That's going to be a dogfight all the way down. You get a little more separation. Washington's a couple of games behind the Cavs now, and then everybody else is a full handful of games or more back. So there's going to be a lot of jockeying for position. As you said, what do we got? Let's see, what do we got? 30, 50, 61. So you got 21 left. And that's why Atlanta's out of the question. I mean, you're 11 games back. Literally, Atlanta would have to lose 16 and go 5 and 16 maybe down this stretch.
Right.
16
and 5.
Yeah. But the other ones are there, and that's going to be a 20-game dogfight for that second, third, and fourth spots, which are going to be so key only because of figuring out which side of the bracket you end up on.
Yeah, that's right. It's going to be fun to watch, and that's what you want to do. And like you say, get ready and get in that. You're in playoff mode. You might as well be calling it playoff basketball, because that's really what it is. And that's even the Celtics coming up. You look at that as a breather, and then you see what they did with the Warriors the other night. They the Warriors came back and beat them, but the Celtics had like a 20-some point lead on Golden State the other night, and ended up kicking it away. But they played the Warriors just as tough as the Cavs did.
For sure. Oh, absolutely. And don't think that they're coming here just looking to give one away, man. That's why Cavaliers get a day off. And it's a big one there as well, starting that stretch, because you get, and you don't want to look ahead. You don't want to look ahead to Toronto and Atlanta. That's the other part of that trap aspect of Boston, is they're coming to play and they can play, but they want to catch you looking ahead and going, hey, we got these tough games at the end of the week, and perhaps they grab you. You can't do that here, and that's what championship teams do, and hopefully that's what we see. That's why I was joking about Indiana. They've caught the Cavs twice now on a Friday night off of a hot streak where the Cavs had somebody missing for injury, and they were able to grab one twice in 3 weeks now on a Friday night from the Cavs, man. So Cavs
exactly, both nights were also second night of a back-to-back on the road. So it was they did kind of luck out, and they've got a scrappy team, and they're down their best player also. So
yes, sir,
got to give them credit.
And I'll tell you what, it's very possible that Indiana or Miami would end up being an opponent for the Cavaliers should the Cavaliers end up as the number 2 seed, because Indiana and Miami are battling back and forth with Brooklyn and Charlotte and a couple of Boston's. Hey, Boston is 1 game out of a playoff spot right now, even though they're 11 games under 500. So is Detroit. Think about this. Cavs, they just dealt with Detroit there. Think about, and I thought that was kind of impressive, because Detroit's a team that was 5-20 something around Christmas time, and here they sit now 23-36. They're 2 games out of the final playoff spot themselves. The bottom drops off after them. Everybody else is like 7-8 games out past there, but I mean, that's 2 games back. Boston and Detroit right there as well. So it's going to be a dogfight from them bottom teams. But man, how about what a comeback by Detroit? They jettisoned Josh Smith, and really since then they've retooled their roster. They made the trade with OKC the other day. They brought what's his name back home, Tayshaun Prince. But that Detroit team may be able to sneak in that back door there with that grouping of 4 or 5 teams at the bottom. But Indiana's one that the Cavaliers may be able to get a little revenge on in the playoffs. But how about Detroit and their comeback, man?
Yeah, they've been impressive, and they probably have a better shot at landing that spot than, say, the Celtics do or those other teams. They're big, and she's Drummond and Monroe, and those guys are tough, and they're fun to watch. They've got some bigs that I wouldn't mind seeing over here. But, they probably look like the favorite to grab that last spot.
And I'm with you too. I would take either one of those big guys in a heartbeat, man. Greg Monroe, Drummond, bring them on over here for sure. But it's just, I think Detroit, we focus on, obviously the Cavs here, but you look at the stretch since January 1st, I think Detroit would be one of the, probably in the top 5 or 6 teams in that 2-month run or whatever, as far as what they've done since the beginning of the year, ever since they had such a terrible start of the season. I think they'd be about 18 and 12 or so since then. Again, that's not like blockbuster, but when you start 5-23, that's a heck of a turnaround in the middle part of the season.
Yeah, nowhere to go but up. Nowhere, from there. And,
well, that's true.
Although the Cavs did handle them the other night, and I guess you can't really go by that. The Cavs just been closing teams out, and you can hang with them for a while, but they know how to put them away. Obviously, yesterday being the exception to that rule. But anyway, it's going to be a fun dogfight to watch down the next month.
Let me toss my question at you that I posed earlier. I'm just going to be throwing this at people from time to time. Name me the teams that you think, assuming health is all good, that can give the Cavs a run in a 7-game series.
Atlanta. That's all.
That's
in
it?
The East. in the East.
Chicago.
Maybe Chicago. I guess maybe Chicago. But, no, I don't think any of the other teams can take them to 7 games.
I'm with you. I'm looking at it in that mode. Not the Cavs can beat everybody. Of course, all these teams can beat anybody, but man, 7-game series really exposes the weaknesses of teams. And I just look at the matchups and I'm like, man, now barring injury, I just don't see. And even out west, man, I get it. Houston won yesterday. But I don't think you win 4 out of 7 against the Cavs. I don't, but it'd be fun to watch. That's for sure. Same with Golden State. I don't know, but it'd be fun to watch. Those are probably the only teams. Those teams, San Antonio, as you named. I'm not on Atlanta, but I would put Chicago there. That's it. That I would even say have a shot to go 6 or 7, just because of the way the makeup of the roster is. Not just sitting here going the Cavs are going to roll everybody, but they are made up well for the playoffs and for the way teams match up. I'm looking and going, man, I don't know where we're sitting here going, man, how are the Cavs going to handle this matchup?
Yeah, I don't think now that they've beefed up a little bit in the front court with Mozgov, Perkins, and whoever, and Thompson off the bench, I don't think, you had a concern before that maybe they didn't match up real well with the size of a Memphis or teams like that, but now there's nobody even in the West that you look at and you're not quaking in your boots about anybody. You saw them handle the Warriors the other night, and they kind of won going away by a dozen. I don't think the Warriors are going to come here. They're not that great a road team. They're not going to come in here and win a game. You're going to have to obviously beat them on the road once. But assuming you get to that kind of a series. But there's nobody even in the West that should have the Cavs fans thinking, oh, well, we got no shot. There's nobody over there that should scare you.
Matter of fact, for all the superiority, and I'm the first one to trumpet the West, yesterday's loss broke a streak of 10 in a row that the Cavs had won over Western Conference teams here so far. So Cavaliers have actually been surprisingly successful against the West thus far this season. And, this is why the health, man, is so important, because that is the big X factor. If everybody's healthy coming in, it's easy to go, wow, the Cavs can definitely finish what they started here. But you look at Kyrie go down, and even though it's just a couple of games, you hold your breath because you see what it does to a team. Derrick Rose goes down for Chicago just like that. And so that is the one thing that you have to continue to hold your breath on with the Cavaliers, is that everybody stays healthy.
Yeah, and you hope certainly with Kyrie that the thing that you don't bring him back too soon, or that the shoulder problem doesn't prove to be some chronic thing that's going to continue to bug him and have him sitting out here and there in various spots along the way, or, God forbid, knock him out altogether before the thing goes all the way through the playoffs, because it's a grind, and I guess you have a little bit more of a break between playoff games than maybe you do typically during the season, but sometimes you still just have the one day in between games in the playoffs, and so you just hope that doesn't become a chronic problem for Kyrie.
No, because as we saw, and I think I saw I've seen this said by different people, but what you see with the Cavs is the Cavs, LeBron James is a great individual player. Kyrie Irving is a great individual player. They make the team better. What makes the Cavs great is when you have both of them together. And clearly when one or the other's missing, and I'm not saying that LeBron's not more valuable than Kyrie, I get it. But what I'm saying is when either is out, there's a difference. Obviously, that's such a thing. But when the two are together, that's when it becomes really hard with the depth of the rest of this team. And that's where that's going to be so important for him as we get ready into it. And I'm with you, man. Them playoffs are a grind, man. Whether you're, it doesn't matter how competitive the series are, man. Every game is a beatdown. Every drive to the lane will not end with a little English layup like they do in the regular season for Kyrie. So he's going to take a pounding like he's never felt before in these playoffs. They all are. And I'm not trying to increase Kyrie's importance over LeBron's. I do think the lack of backup at his position, not that you can back up LeBron James either, but you've got a little more depth in that area than you do at point guard. I mean, you lose Kyrie, you've got to, in the playoffs, you would have to switch LeBron to running the point full time, because otherwise you're going 40 minutes a night with Delly. And as we saw yesterday, I love what Delly brings you for 15, 18, maybe even 20. 42 minutes is far too much for him to be out there, except in a desperation situation. So I think that kind of shows that importance there too. Without having a more dynamic point guard at backup, I'm cool with it, but that limits you if you lose Kyrie a little bit differently than if you were to be without LeBron. Not saying that it's not every bit as important not to have LeBron either.
Yeah, you're right, and that's really what they did yesterday. LeBron basically was functioning as the point guard for the better part of that game. I mean, even though Delly played a lot of minutes, they were still having LeBron, bring the ball up a lot of times and obviously be the point man there. The thing about having Kyrie there is I think Blatt's done a pretty good job of, he'll rest LeBron and he'll rest Kyrie, and they'll be on the floor at times together, but usually when one's on the bench, the other isn't. Unless you're in a blowout, he doesn't have both of them sitting on the bench resting. So that at all times you've got one guy out there that can sort of create his own shot, take it to the rack, and basically carry the team from an individual standpoint. When you're resting LeBron, you've got Kyrie doing it, and vice versa. Except when you're up 25 in the fourth, or when they're both sitting on the bench as they should be. But
right, and when your team's made up of guys to spot up around them and spread the floor and shoot, and then you don't have either of your drive and kick guys that are out there, then the offense gets different, because now you've got a bunch of guys who can shoot and nobody who's really penetrating and driving the lane, with the exception of when J.R. Smith wants to get out there and get at it. That was the one thing that Dion brought you, because like you said off there, you got to have one of them on the floor at the same time. So when Kyrie's hurt, then you're naturally going to have the times where LeBron's not out there, and it was really noticeable there when you get that, where there's just, without him out there and without Kyrie, there's nobody really anxious to take that ball to the hole.
Yeah, that's right. And even though it was obvious they were running this isolation, pretty much leaving LeBron and four guys standing around late in that game, when it came down to it, I desperately, when they were in a tie ball game there, or down a point, I should say, with 20 seconds to go in overtime, and I was desperately hoping that LeBron would not settle for a jump shot.
No,
because
drive.
You had to figure, you got to take it to the rack at that point, especially if it's going to be obvious to everybody what you're doing. Take him to the rack, try to get fouled, and it worked out the way they planned it. He got fouled, but obviously didn't come through on the line. But
you know what?
Even though you're tired of the isolation and then wishing they would go back to moving the ball a little bit, maybe even have Love out there and have a couple options for a kick out 3-pointer or something. At that point in the game, down a point with 20 seconds to go, and you're going for the last shot, win or lose. I think you got to take it inside and try to either get the layup or get fouled, maybe get lucky and get the and one.
Well, you know what? That was almost there at the end of regulation, and look, LeBron's a great passer, so I'm not going to say LeBron missed it, but Ariza did a good job. He forced LeBron all the way back to the timeline. He had him all the way back at half court, running that clock down, bodied him up tight. I was with you. I wanted LeBron to drive. I'm like, man, don't fake the drive and pull up and shoot the jumper, because they're not going to foul you, and then we're either going to make it or we're going to overtime. Drive and give yourself a shot. But and when they showed the replay, his eyes saw it, and I'm willing to bet if somebody asks him about it, LeBron will say he considered the pass, because right off to the right corner, as LeBron jab stepped and went up for that shot at the end of regulation, he looked over. Kevin Love was open in the corner, and I think that was the shot. I think that was the open shot there at the end. Instead, LeBron pulled up for that contested shot. And again, I'm not doing that criticizing game time decision thing, man. That's a split-second deal. But I bet you he may think twice about that again, because Kevin Love flashed open in the corner. But either way, he pulled up for that jumper instead of driving, and I'm like, oh, man, I just thought you give yourself a shot at getting the foul call there at the end, exactly like what did happen when you got the foul there at the end in the end of the overtime. But yeah, man, you got to give credit to Ariza too. Trevor Ariza is a good ball defender when he wants to be, for sure, and he did a good job, man up on LeBron. Problem was I just thought everybody watching knew how that last play was going to go, and so did they. They manned up on LeBron. Everybody else got out of the way, and we watched the clock tick down for the final shot. Those are the only times that I feel like, man, we're watching this. We've watched this party before, man, because I think teams love it when any team LeBron's on do that. Doesn't matter if it's the Cavs or the Heat. I think teams love it when, and I think, hey, man, teams loved it when the Bulls did it back in the day with Michael Jordan too, man. It's, you play right into their hands because you take everybody else off the floor, and they're cool with that because they would rather play 5-on-1. And I'm not saying that in a bad way, but sometimes you get so competitive that you play right into what the other team wants you to do. I kind of felt like that's what the Cavs did at the end.
Yeah, and I think when you do that too, you have a lesser chance of getting the foul called because everybody knows there's going to be some contact once you get to that rim. And I think the tendency on the part of the officials is to just let that go because, hey, you're getting what you bargained for, and that's some contact at the rim. I'm not going to call a ticky-tack foul, or even maybe sometimes a hard foul, because that's what you're bargained for. So at least that's the tendency that it appears to me to be that way.
You're listening to the Sports Fix. Dan Wismar, J-Rocc, talking a little Cavs hoops. I like this, man. I like this time of year. You and I are going to get to have a lot of different conversations that sometimes we don't always get to have here. Talking hoops, high school, college. By the way, college. How about Buckeyes here? We're getting close to a Big Ten play here coming up. Buckeyes took care of business against Purdue over the weekend. But how are you feeling? You and I have talked a little bit coming up here about the Buckeyes, the inconsistency, man. Of course, last year getting snipped like they did against Dayton. How similar do you feel about this Buckeyes team heading into? Of course, you get the Big Ten tournament before you got to worry about the big one. But how similar does it feel to that, man? I mean, I was saying the other day, although I have to take this away now because the Vikings let me down the other night. I don't know if they've got an upset in them either, but I was telling JK, I'm like, man, if you put me on the ledge and said pick one between the Vikes and the Buckeyes to win their first round game, I would take the Vikings, man. I've got that inconsistent feeling about the Buckeyes, but I guess it really kind of depends on, who you draw in the matchups, because obviously when you have that great individual player, that's always going to give you certain advantages no matter what.
Yeah, and I think that maybe the issue might be that that great individual player, D'Angelo Russell, might be, hitting a little bit of a wall. At least it looked like he had over the last few games, and teams are sort of game planning around him, knowing that there's not a lot of other punch offensively on that team that's going to hurt you. To me, this team has been hamstrung, and it really has been hamstrung for 3 seasons by the lack of a productive center. Yesterday was another example of this. Amir Williams, I thought, and no slam on the kid himself. He's a good guy and he's a hard trier, but he's not, a productive center. He's not. He has terrible hands. He never has learned how to finish around the rim. He's not a good defensive player. He gets guys dribbling around him all the time. He just had certainly a miserable first half yesterday. Obviously, they came back in the second half, and he had a few buckets. But, man, I think when you go into the tournament, you need some inside presence, and I just don't think they've got it.
Yeah. Well, not only that, though, the outside shooting's been, not just from one guy, but all the way around, man. The Buckeyes shooting is down. You talked about Russell. I think he's shooting about 33% in the last 6 or 7 games. But Mark Loving, since he came back, 2 of 10 for 3 here, and he's having some trouble since suspension. Sam Thompson. I mean, you can go on through the list. Everybody's down 5-10% on their shooting percentage here. So when you don't have the inside game too, that just really gets amplified there.
Yeah, you're right, and Loving especially just hasn't been able to throw it in the ocean from a rowboat here lately, and Thompson too, although he's been a little bit inconsistent, I think a little bit hesitant to even take his shot a good part of the season. So yeah, they're a team that they might end up being an 8, maybe a 9 seed. It looks like they're 21-8. They got a chance to put up a couple more W's, and they'll have a respectable record, maybe 23-9, something like that. They might end up. Look like they're going to be seated somewhere in the middle of the pack, somewhere between 8 and 10 probably. But sure, could they get knocked out early? Absolutely. They really just, it's a little bit of a down time. Mata's got a great recruiting class coming in, and his problems with his bigs, I think, are going to be solved, next season and then the few seasons to come. They've got some good kids, ready to play and coming in as recruits, but man, until that happens, they're struggling inside, both offensively and defensively. They just don't have that inside game, and seems that when tourney time comes around, that is emphasized even more, and all that more glaring a weakness. So yeah, it would not surprise me a bit to see, say, the Vikings win a game and the Buckeyes go out early. You never know what can happen, but certainly Jayshawn Tate has picked up his game and helped him. It's nice to see him kind of come into his own as a player here late in his freshman year. Obviously gets, plays a lot bigger than the 6'4" that he is. He looks like a much bigger kid out there, and plays a forward spot at 6'4". So he's giving you more than, the physical ability, shows you. But, clearly they're a team that has the potential to, on any given night, come out and not have the shooting numbers, not have anything on the inside, and make a quick exit.
I'll tell you what, man, that's going to be something to watch as we get into Big Ten tournament play. Of course, a couple of more regular season games, 2 more regular season games remain for the Buckeyes here before we hit the tournament. Tournament starts is it a week from tomorrow? A week from Wednesday? I believe it's the 9th, or the 11th, excuse me. The 11th is the first day of the Big Ten tournament, but we got Penn State on the road, and then a tough one there. You've got 26-3 Wisconsin. That's going to be a big tough test to end the season at home before you. And that's a good test, right before you head into the tourney.
Yeah, that should be a great game. At least you get them, your one matchup with Wisconsin this year. You get them at home, final game of the year, and that'll be a real good litmus test to see. Kaminsky just so good. I watched him play over the weekend, and they took Michigan State down, and they just. He's just that good a player. I mean, he's just an amazing player. I heard Tom Izzo say yesterday that he hadn't been that impressed with any player in the Big Ten since Glenn Robinson. I thought that was high praise.
Wow. Yeah, that is.
Talking about Frank Kaminsky. So, the 7-footer to have that kind of agility and outside shooting touch and just mobility and ability to just take it to the rim and play defense, he just really is the real deal. Come to appreciate him a lot more watching him several times this season. Certainly the Big Ten Player of the Year, I think, without any question. And, got them probably getting a 1 seed in the tournament if they show well the rest of the way. I saw them ranked 5 the other day, so if they're not a 1 seed, they're on the verge of it. So I wouldn't be a bit surprised to see whoever wins the Big Ten tournament. If it's Wisconsin, I think they will get a 1 seed.
Yeah, they're coming. I'll tell you what. Looking ahead, what are they? 26-3. Yeah, that could definitely see if they come through. And you know what? Maryland too. Strong regular season for them. Either of those two coming out of the conference could probably end up with that upper seed, like you said there. And looking at speaking of seeding, before you look at the big tournament, looking at the Big Ten tournament coming up, these last couple of games here, not just meaningless when it comes to seeding for the tournament, because you've got a whole handful of teams. I believe Wisconsin has the number 1 seed locked up. Well, there is a possibility of Maryland, but you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 teams that technically could end up jockeying around anywhere between 2 through 7 in the Big Ten when you look down from Maryland on down to Indiana based on how the last 2 games of the regular season go. Ohio State's 10-6. You got Purdue and Maryland 1 and 2 games in front of them. They're tied with Iowa and Michigan State, and Indiana's a game behind. So really there could be a lot of jockeying as far as who ends up 2 through 7 in the tournament over the next few days.
Yeah, that's true. And I guess, in the conference tournament like that, seeding is, sort of important, but it's not the be-all, end-all. I mean, basically, you've got to beat everybody. If you're going to, they don't give a lot of points for second place in the Big Ten tournament. So, you're going to have to beat Wisconsin. You're going to have to beat a couple of these teams that are ahead of you in the standings. You have to beat either Maryland or Wisconsin, one or the other, to win the thing. And of course, when you go into it, if you're Ohio State, that's all you're thinking about doing. But you're right. There are 6 teams certainly that are all bunched up in a pack behind Wisconsin, and the next 2 regular season games obviously will sort all that out and seed that tournament for us. And it'll be great to just be looking at some tournament basketball starting next week.
Well, the seeding, it matters as long as you finish. It doesn't matter as long as you finish top 4, because the top 4 don't have to play those extra games.
Oh, sure, yeah, you do. You get a bye, yeah, right.
Well, I mean, that's what I mean, because there is the possibility, obviously you don't want to look in that direction, but the Buckeyes are right on the verge of that top 4. They could easily find themselves 5th or 6th before this is over in the next week, and then have to climb their way out of an extra game or 2 in the tournament. That was what I meant as far as that.
Yeah, you're right. You are right. You can get a bye, and that obviously helps you.
Because
one thing, Joe, I wanted to ask you, and before we got out of here, I needed to go here. I know you don't want to go here, but I needed to go.
You're going Browns, aren't you? You're going Browns, aren't you?
I needed to go to Josh McCown just for a second.
Yes, go ahead, because I want to know where you're
at.
Let
me just say this. I hope that, and I'll preface all of what I'm going to say by a couple of statements. One, I don't disagree with you a bit that the Browns organization is planning to try to justify their selection of Johnny Manziel in the 2015 season. I also will not disagree with you that nobody in Cleveland is very excited about Mr. McCown. Is it Josh or is it Luke? It's Josh. Okay,
Josh is the one we got now. Luke's the one we had before.
Right. However, I mean, I think what I hear you saying, and I know maybe you didn't say this in so many words, but basically what you're saying is the Browns let Brian Hoyer go, or they signed McCown instead of signing Brian Hoyer, as if they had a legitimate shot to sign one or the other. And I'm not going to fault them because, A, I know that they had to have somebody come August that had more than one NFL start under their belt. They had to, you'll agree with me, would you not, that they did need to sign a free agent veteran quarterback.
Absolutely, but they didn't wait for the free agent quarterbacks. They took the first guy that came along.
And I could ask you who in the free agent pool you would have preferred to Josh McCown, and whether or not, if you felt it was realistic that you could have signed that person. But I'm not going to fault them for signing Josh McCown, only because we do not know whether or not they could have signed Brian Hoyer even if they wanted to. Well, we agree that Brian Hoyer probably looked at this situation and said, "Get me the heck out of here."
But okay. I got to follow you up with the words. I mean, who was it that reported over the weekend? They talked to Brian Hoyer. I can't remember who it was, but the last word coming out. And again, this is public posturing, but the last word coming out of Hoyer's camp is that they did try to set up a meeting with the Browns, and that Ray Farmer blew them off and never returned the call until down at the end of it when it was too little too late. So I agree with you, but I believe that it doesn't matter. I don't believe if Brian Hoyer was standing up on his tippy toes and saying, pick me, pick me, pick me, I don't think that Ray Farmer had any intention of making that return phone call. And the more I hear about the earliness of them and all of that stuff last year, I mean, okay, the texting and that stuff, you've probably heard me talking about it earlier in the show. It's bad enough. It's bad enough as it is. But doesn't it kind of change your outlook on it a little bit more when you realize that this wasn't happening once things started to fall apart? Because I can get with you and I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but if we're in the real world and you're going, hey, look, man, we're starting to have some issues. What is going on here? The offense, even if you want to blame it all on the quarterback, okay, at least once that stuff started happening. But we're talking beginning of the season, and at that point, then you start to really go, wait a minute, maybe these guys just had their mind made up from day one how this thing was going to go, and no matter how much it didn't work out the way they wanted. And that's a different mentality. That's a different way that I look at it. And so honestly, I mean, and I told you, I've had people telling me, man, that this is it's not like everybody hated Brian Hoyer, but there are some people high up that truly feel like he bogged up the works, and the hometown thing was the only reason that nobody gave Manziel a chance, and everybody wanted Hoyer, and they needed to get a guy in here that was happy with his role mentoring other quarterbacks. To me, that's against your whole play like a Brown philosophy, your whole increasing competition at every place, because basically you're faulting Brian Hoyer for not accepting his role in life and not just saying, I'm just happy to be here. I want 54 guys on my team that are more than just happy to be here, that all want to be the starter. They all want to be the franchise player, because otherwise I got a bunch of guys that are happy being mediocre. And guess what? Josh McCown is happy to collect $6.25 million to tell Johnny Manziel how to read the playbook and to sit back, and if he has to start, he'll start, and if he doesn't, that's okay too, because he doesn't mind. The Browns are not increasing competition at that point. You're lowering the competition to make it easier for your guy to win the job.
I read you loud and clear. I guess all I'm saying to you is You needed to sign a veteran quarterback, and I don't know. And I'm not saying you couldn't have done better. I'm saying that they obviously have talked with the agents for a number of the free agent quarterbacks. They have some familiarity with this guy, and he's the guy they decided to sign. I agree with you that they have no intention of having him be anything other than a place filler for maybe a season. But all the talk now, and I'm just in my 5-minute commute to the office this morning, all I'm hearing is Mariota, move up, trade up. I don't think they have any intention of doing that.
I hope not.
I would certainly hope not. All I want to get out of this draft in the first round is 2 players, not one. And I don't care if either one of them's a quarterback. But
you know what? Let me follow what you're saying though, because I'm with you, and I know what you're saying about having to get somebody. It doesn't matter if this guy's name is McCown or whatever, Joe Schmo. It doesn't matter. The point is that by making that decision that they basically made the decision that we drafted who our quarterback is last year. And I'm telling you, Dan, as much as I do in your heart of hearts that we're about 6 weeks away from the first articles and the first stories leaking out of Never Neverland about the changes and the rehabilitation and the new work ethic and all of that stuff.
Johnny's a new man.
Brother, there was a reason.
I don't doubt that for a moment that we will see. Before the 1st of June, we will see the first hints that Browns are encouraged by the progress of Johnny Manziel. They think he's going to be, a new attitude, a new approach, and he's serious. I definitely think we're going to see that because that's what the team has to do, and they're going to try to. Gin up a little bit of enthusiasm for the guy and a little bit of rehabilitation, redemption for the guy, because I think you're right. I think they've made the decision that going into this next season that he's going to probably be their guy.
Yeah.
You might see McCown taking some snaps in the first couple games, but I think it's just a matter of time, and it might even be by the opener that they have convinced themselves that they're going to go with Johnny, roll the dice, and see what happens.
And I mean...
That's why it doesn't really matter to me what Josh McCown's record was last year with a bad team. That means nothing to me. They had to sign a veteran because they had nobody that had taken more than 2 NFL starts. And they had to sign somebody. It could have been this guy, could have been, Jake Locker. And I think the fans of Cleveland would have still been just as... underwhelmed with the selection.
Well, I'm not just worried about what the fans in Cleveland. I would have been more on board with whoever you signed if you had looked at more than one guy. If you had waited a week or two. You had to be, maybe Josh McCown's agent did a great job of driving up a quick market on Josh McCown, and you felt like you just couldn't lose this guy to the Buffalo Bills. But free agency is in a couple of days. My thought was just, really, do you get any lesser of a guy, Dan, by inviting in 3 or 4 quarterbacks next week before you pick one? Are you going to get any less of a guy than McCown? No way. You know what I mean?
I don't know how we can know that beyond having had conversations with agents and the line.
I hear you.
The line of quarterbacks. It's a short line of established NFL quarterbacks. First of all, it's a weak free agent crop in the first place.
Agreed.
Sam Bradford maybe being at the head of the class. I don't know, and he's coming off. He puts you right back in the same situation you were this year, coming off an ACL surgery. But
I agree. I
Anyway,
understand.
so we don't really have a big disagreement about it. I just wanted to say, because I don't know that the Browns could have had Hoyer if they wanted him, even though they maybe didn't want him, and there are lots of signals that they didn't want him. But we also don't know that they could have had him if they wanted, because Brian Hoyer could always say no. Thank you, and I'm taking it on down the road.
Could be right. You could be right, Dan. The Browns could have said, you know what, this guy ain't coming back, so we need to frame this publicly like we didn't want him back because we don't want any more egg on our face. And if he's not going to answer our phone calls, then forget him. We'll just make it look like he didn't. You know what I mean? So
but I do agree with you that I think the feeling was mutual. But it's harder to say, hey, Brian Hoyer would have played here for the money we're paying Josh McCown.
Right. I know what you mean. I don't think we can say that.
I know
what you mean.
We don't know that.
It doesn't matter. Knowing that feeling of betrayal. And guys, for those of you that think, and I'm just being real, Dan, you're a human. You've worked in places. You know how psychology works. You can think that story goes away in a few months, but it doesn't. All I'm going to say is it doesn't matter if you're a quarterback. I don't care who you are. If you play for the Browns at any point in the future, this is reality. Bro, I've worked places where politics is a big, especially radio, wrestling, any kind of entertainment field. Politics is a big part of who goes where and who gets what opportunities and all of that stuff. But any future player that plays under Ray Farmer, especially as these details continue to leak out about, the texting and stuff like that quickly you start to see, and as I mentioned, when you look at the scenario, especially once Hoyer signs somewhere else and starts letting his side of the story out even more, and then more of that happens. Point being is, from me, if I played for Ray Farmer, I would shake his hand. I'd play for him. I mean, you can only trust a guy as how he deals with you to your face, but there's always going to be that thought in the back of my mind is this guy shaking my hand and doing the same thing to me that he did to Brian Hoyer, that he did to so-and-so? I know it's easy to say it'll never happen again, but that's something that in a business where trust is so important, it's easy for fans to go, oh, that was just the story of the week. But playing that out in the future, if I'm a player, I'm that much more distrustful towards the Browns front office. Even if I'm working for them, it doesn't mean that I'm not looking out a little bit more for myself and a little bit less for the team. I just think there will be reverberations for that more than what people think down the road.
Yeah, I think you're right. I also think I agree with you that there was a scenario that was playing out in the minds of the front office, and Brian Hoyer screwed it all up by winning 7 of his first 11 games.
You know he did. He screwed it all up by winning games.
That's what happened, and that's the very sad thing about the whole story is that, the Browns' plan was screwed up by winning.
And that is
how sick is that?
You just said it in a nutshell. What I keep coming back to when I say this is what the majority of Browns fans are hitting me with over the offseason as what they're most frustrated with, and that you summed it up right there. And that's where I'm at. I mean, Josh McCown is Jake Locker. He's all these guys, whatever, man. Like, it is what it is. But, man, it's going to be interesting sledding come this.
The best news of all, Jerry.
Baseball starts tomorrow?
There's a baseball game tomorrow.
Yeah.
That's right.
You know where I was going with that one, man. Yes, absolutely. These guys have a long time to figure that stuff out, and we have a long time to laugh and cry and do all of those things that go with what the Browns do. But tomorrow, it may not count, but it's a baseball game. They're wearing uniforms and everything, and they'll play about 23 or 24 of those, and then they start counting for real. I can't wait. I'm with it, Dan. How you feeling about spring training?
I've been able to read a few things. All you get right now is some beat writer stuff, and sometimes they're reaching a little bit for stories before the games start. I'm getting a kick out of, now just over at the Diatribe, Al Chimakella, our friend, is starting out with his top prospects countdown. He's got number 30 through number 26 up there today, actually yesterday. And every day this week he's coming out with another 5. Count them down. He'll have them all done by Friday. So people that have listened to Al here on your show and have read Al at the Diatribe before, or it's a Cleveland fan, just want to put in a little plug for him to send people over to the Diatribe blog to read his Indians prospects list. We've got 30 through 26 up there right now. So I'm getting a kick out of that. I also follow Tony Lastoria and his nice work over at IBI, which just recently became a Scout affiliate, by the way, Scout.com affiliate. He's got forums over there to have discussion groups on tribe stuff. So some things going on where you get in a little bit more in depth. But as of tomorrow, when we're actually playing ball games, it's going to be great. What kind of things are you hearing, Jerry, that are getting you excited?
I'll tell you what got me excited the other day was Tyler Holt said He said he was up in the batter's box there when Carrasco was pitching the other day and just lighting it up. And he said he watched a couple of those. They were regular season quality heaters. And he said, yeah, I'm not ready to swing against that just yet. But he said it looks like Carrasco's right back where he left off at the end of last season. And that just made my mouth water because I said, man, that is one of the biggest keys to how things come together for the Indians. If Carrasco Kluber, maybe he falls off a little because naturally it's hard to stay that good, but I still expect a comparable level of success from Kluber, even if he falls off. That's different than what we look at with Carrasco to me, because now you're hoping that flash that you saw is the real deal. And I like any early encouragement that, yes, he's pitching much like the guy who ended last season, because now you can really start tantalizingly looking at this starting rotation if Carrasco and Kluber are doing 1 and 2 like that.
Yeah, that's right. I read somebody just this morning say that he's got Carrasco as a sleeper Cy Young pick for 2015. I said, okay, well, that might be a little over the top.
A little too far, but I'll take it if he's even close.
I love hearing it. The other thing I read talking about Kluber maybe falling off a little bit, I read the other day that Kluber was 18-9 last year. Of his 9 losses, in 5 of them, the Indians scored 1 run or less.
Yep.
So, that shows you that, it could have very easily been 20-something and 6 or something to that effect. So, even if Kluber falls off a little bit, you still got a guy. One thing about Kluber is he's going to be, consistent, and he's going to be a competitor and a gamer every time out. So that's a awesome looking 1-2 punch. And you've also, I'm sure, like me, have been reading positive things about Trevor Bauer too. And
yes,
they let these guys fight it out. Somebody talking today about, I saw the Columbus Clippers salivating this morning about having a rotation that includes 2 out of 3 of House, Tomlin, and Salazar.
Yeah.
Only one of those 3 guys is going to make the team. Throw in a couple of guys like Markham and some of the other cats that we've talked about in this deep starting group, and they're going to have a heck of a rotation at AAA down in Columbus.
Yeah, I'm telling you, man. I'm right there with you on that. That's one of the reasons I'm so fired up, man, is looking at that. And think about that going down, like you said, to the next level. There's going to be some good baseball played, at least in the early part of the season down there at AAA as well, with that starting rotation. They may have if things fall the way we hope they will for the Indians, their AAA rotation will be comparable to some of the lower major league teams, because they'll have some depth.
That's
like
quite
you
possible.
said.
Yeah, Bruce Chen being another one of those guys. You look at Chen and Markham and Salazar and House and Cody Anderson or whatever. So that's going to be a nice group down there. There's a couple other guys I was reading about just in Al's column yesterday that I can't even think of the name of a guy that I want to say Will Roberts maybe, who looks like he may be ready to jump into that Columbus AAA rotation and be a study. Al thinks he might be just a season or so, a season away from being in the big leagues as a starting pitcher. So lots of promise down there as well.
Love seeing some of that stuff, that depth built up in the minors and all of that stuff. Oh man, fired up with all of this that we've seen, all the defensive drilling going on. I like having John McDonald working on the guys. I like seeing. I get my B-roll footage from the Tribe every day. I get all the stuff from spring training, and love seeing that, man. The increased, we talked about it. That was obviously going to be something that they were working on doing with the defense this year, starting off camp. I like what about a guy I like bringing in? They continuously have been bringing in guys from the past, but I like bringing in guys that can specifically help. McDonald's a guy that they said, hey, he's not just here for a token appearance. He's here to get hands-on and try to help these guys. I mean, that's a guy that can definitely work, especially with the younger guys on the glove work. But, I mean, it's just, to me, it's not, you don't teach major leaguers, again, how to get in the line and it's just getting in the routine earlier, making it routine. But, some of the things that maybe in the past you only did 1 or 2 drills a week because you took it as took it for granted that everybody remembers how to hit the cutoff guy and how to hit the relay and all of that. Maybe now you make sure you throw in a drill a little more often because it's more active. And I think they've done a dedicated effort at that early on, at really hitting those early defensive drills, because we know how important that was in the first 6 weeks of the season.
Yeah, you're right. And you also just have fewer question marks about who's going to be playing where. You don't have a platoon at third base. You don't have a coin flip over there to see if it's going to be Santana or Chiz. The other thing, too, by the way, I don't know if you saw the story about how Chiz has worked his body. They were talking about him the other day. He's, I guess, a little bit leaner, a little bit stronger, and been doing the CrossFit thing. And they say he's retooled his body, too, and looks like he may have added a little bit of pop, a little bit of strength, and that's always a good thing to look at, too. And he is, again, a guy who's mostly concentrating on consistency at the plate, because he had a great first half and not a great second half. And obviously also getting more consistent with the glove as well. But at least he knows, I think, right now that he's got that job, and he's going to be the third baseman. And where last year that was a coin flip.
How about what else are you liking so far early on? I mean, definitely from the guys that were injured, some of the things we've talked about, I like the early encouraging reports. Nick Swisher's one that I'll tell you. Probably the least encouraging, although, again, I temper everything I say about Swisher with the fact that I've already said maybe I'm different than all of you guys, and maybe I'm different than the Indians, but I'm not – there's no Nick Swisher plan for this season for me in what I expect out of the Indians. I am expecting nothing, and if they get something, that's great, but I'm not even banking on it, man. I think anything I think for the Indians will come with or without him, and I think we're seeing that early on. I get it. He came in light. I think he was about 10, 11 pounds light. He worked hard, but there's only so much you can do when both knees are done, and I know it's slow rolling out, but they're being so cautious that I'm already kind of getting the early feeling that the Indians maybe are where I'm at. We'll take what we can get. But I think that the optimism towards him is not as strong as it is for everybody else who's coming in with injury issues.
Yeah, and read a report the other day about Brandon Moss hitting bombs in batting practice. And he looks real good. And I haven't really read much about Kipnis. Kipnis has been pretty quiet. I don't know if you've heard good things or not about him or what his stroke looks like, but it's way early for that yet. But at least they say that Moss looks completely healthy, and they say he's showing off in batting practice, hitting bombs to right field. The other thing, I don't know if you saw, I think I might have sent you the thing by Adam Burke, my friend from Cleveland Fan Days, who's now writing for EverybodyHatesCleveland.com, about the idea that this team shouldn't worry about not having a lot of right-handed batters in the lineup, because Progressive Field is a left-handed hitter's park. It's a park that favors lefties. That's where the Indians are loaded up with Moss and Chiz and Brantley and Bourne and everybody else, except for Gomes, really, and the switch hitters. That's not a problem. At least last year it wasn't. That even though the Indians didn't hit as many home runs as some other teams, they scored as many runs or more runs in the middle of their lineup, 3 through 6, as some of the top teams in the American League that were hitting more homers. They look to be just about as heavy left-handed this year, if not more so than last year. And Adam's point, and he's showing it with analytics and numbers, is that isn't something that really the Indians should be concerned about, because they're balanced offensively. They hit 1 through 9. And they're in a park with a lot of lefties, in a park that favors lefties. So I came away from that piece feeling a little bit better about things too. And Adam Burke is another guy that you want to read regularly over at EverybodyHatesCleveland.com. He's a good guy and a very knowledgeable baseball writer.
Oh, so we're just plugging everybody. No, I'm just kidding, man.
Might as well plug them all.
No, I read it. Yeah. You sent that to me over the weekend, man, and that was some good stuff.
These are my guys, and I think they're good. I wouldn't plug them if I thought they were
just kidding,
run-of-the-mill writers.
I'm just kidding, man. But, it was a great article that you sent me there from Everybody Hates Cleveland about exactly that. And I was looking at it and I said, okay, man, and And looking at where the Indians were they fifth on that list at the American League there, right there, with Oakland and Baltimore, and remember the Indians own internal numbers and the way they look at it too as far as the park, man. They disagree with a lot of those analytics because they believe that is what works better in Progressive Field, which is why they continually sign in that direction. So that's part of their own research with that.
Yeah, that's true, and it's well known, and it's been known for a while that with the biggest thing probably is that 19-foot high wall in left field. I'm sure don't know how much that accounts for the difference between it being a park that favors left-handed hitters versus right-handers. Maybe the wind, maybe the weather, whatever, but certainly the 19-foot high wall keeps a lot of balls in the park that otherwise might go out.
You know what?
But,
something else.
Yeah, they do know that.
Something else you in the article that was pointed out that you sent me here that we're talking about is assuming 20 home runs for Moss, which I think is a good assumption if he's safe or if he's healthy here, a safe assumption for us to make. Were the Indians to just have the same production that they did last year, they would be they could have 4 players with 20 or more home runs here this season with Moss coming in there. Only one team had 4 20 or more home run guys last year, Baltimore. So that says something there, too, what the addition of Moss should bring to the middle of this lineup and how it's not as See, the thing is because it's tricky, and we know when you look at the Indians' numbers, it's like looking at runs scored per game, and you go, oh, the Indians have a pretty good offense. But as we know, that means that they scored 10 runs one night and 1 run the next, and it was the consistency of the output and not the total of the output. Same thing there, too. Carlos Santana's numbers look great until he goes 3 months without a home run, and then he hits 20 in 1 month, and you go, hey, well, it looks good at the end. So those are part of it, too. And that's where I think if Moss is that guy we've been talking about in the middle of the lineup, all of us, I keep using like a bridge term, something that just really ties everything together, and you no longer have that weak spot. And think about it. If you've got 4 guys capable of 20-plus home runs, there's only how many spots in a lineup? So all of a sudden, you've got power spread throughout that lineup.
Yeah, you're right, and I think it could be more than 4, actually, Jerry, if you think about the prospects for Yan Gomes. It's certainly not out of the realm of possibility to think Yan Gomes might hit 20, and throw Santana and Moss and maybe Brantley and maybe Swisher. But you're right. The consistency is where they need to be. I mean, you look at last year, Lonnie Chisenhall hits 280, and you say, hey, that's pretty good. Until you read how he hit 380 before the break and 220 after the break. It doesn't look quite as good because he was so heavily weighted towards the front half. But and the same thing, I think you can certainly say write Moss down for 20 homers since he had 21 at the All-Star break last year, or midway through the season somewhere. I don't know if it was right at the All-Star break, but he's a guy that's gonna might as well just pencil him in for that. And
you know what?
As long as he stays healthy.
With Moss, what's encouraging to me, too, and I'll be happy with 20, but what's encouraging to me is that he had those 21 home runs by the All-Star game, and he said this winter that he was already hurt and that it was already affecting him all throughout the first half, the hip, and it got worse down the second half where it was grinding so bad. But think about that as he says that his first half last year was also affected by the injury, and that was the half that we point to where we go, hey, he had 268, he had the 21 home runs. I mean, hey, that's a good deal. So that leads me to believe that perhaps he may be slightly even more effective than that if he's at his best. So I'm very, very at least optimistically hopeful about that because that says,
sure.
Hey,
my big question with him, I just want to see him play right field. I don't really know.
I hear he's doing a lot of it so far, that it's looking good so far early in spring. That would be interesting to see because that's a big question, like you said.
Yeah. Now, do you know if they're going to have Santana do any catching at all this year?
I don't.
Or are they just going to carry Roberto Perez as the backup and not even put Santana back behind the plate at all?
That's everything I'm hearing. I mean, obviously Santana gives you the luxury of a guy if you need a day without having to make a roster move or something like that, I guess. But as far as I understand, it's going to be it's going to be all first base, and you know what I mean. There's not going to be any regular catching duties in Santana's
first base and DH. In other words, that's what I'm thinking is if Moss doesn't prove to be an adequate right fielder, or maybe you platoon Aviles out there or Rayburn or somebody when you're facing a good left-handed pitcher, then Santana's only other option, of course, if you would be to catch or DH. And if you're not going to catch him, then that just limits what your options are as far as Moss goes. And Moss is going to either be in right field or he's going to be at first base. And if you need to play him at first base more, then obviously you need to DH Santana more. That puts Swisher out of your lineup, which may be a blessing or a curse, who knows. But just thinking about how those options are going to play out, and I can see breaking camp without Ryan Rayburn on this roster at all.
Same with Swisher.
Thing with David Murphy. I wouldn't be a bit surprised to see neither Rayburn or Murphy on the team.
Well, Swisher, I mean, they've already begun throwing out the hints of, hey, we wouldn't be afraid to start the season with him down on a little rehab stint or whatever. So I'm telling you, I think that the Indians are already coming to the realization that they're probably starting this season at least behind the eight ball when it comes to Nick Swisher, and that he very well may not be ready, which, as you said, could be a blessing in surprise, because part of Mike Brandenburg, part of his lack of optimism for the Indians is when you look at, are they going to try to force him into the equation? Because that's a difference, because when he came out last year, we saw how the pieces fit together much better and the Indians played better. So him not being able to play takes that decision out of your hands, and maybe it's a blessing in disguise, like you said.
Yeah, and I think you're right. And I am in the same camp as you are on Swisher, expecting nothing. Whatever we get from Swisher will be a bonus if we get anything. And you have to start the season not counting on him and just being in that position where whatever he gives you is all on the upside.
With Moss, like you were asking, I'm hearing a lot that at least early, and you probably are too, the Indians are at least optimistic that they may be able to utilize Moss a lot more than maybe they thought in a worst-case scenario when it comes to right field. So, I mean, again, it's early. Everybody feels good in the beginning of spring, and things can change, but that also answers a lot of questions for the Tribe if he's able to do that.
Yeah, it does, and the other thing is, will he hit lefties well enough to stay in the lineup against them? To be a regular in the lineup against the lefties. I'm not sure what his track record is off left-handed pitching, but because our other lefties, certainly Brantley, hits lefties, and he never comes out of the lineup. And if you can have a guy like Moss in there every day, lefty or righty, that obviously helps you and cuts down the amount of days that he would either need to play first base or sit out or DH, and that's it's going to be Moss and Santana. Basically in that right field DH first base cycle, I would think, and you're going to be helped a lot if Moss hits lefties well enough to stay in there, for 130, 140 games.
Man, Dan, I know you're as happy about this next sentence as I am. Starting tomorrow, it'll be October before we're talking about them where we're speculating without games anymore, because they start throwing them for real. Well, almost, you know what I mean. But they start throwing games in uniforms tomorrow, and they're kind of for real. They're for real for people fighting for jobs. I shouldn't say it that way, but you know what I mean. They're playing some baseball tomorrow. I am so fired up. Next week, the conference tournaments start. I mean, this is what we've been waiting for, man. This is where the dam breaks, if you will, in sports.
That's right. We made it through that tough February stretch where it's just a sports wasteland, and now the good stuff starts, and before we know it, we'll be into March Madness and all that craziness along with spring training. So yeah, it's a great time of year, and now if we could just get the temperature up above freezing, we'd have it made.
We're looking at maybe 3 or 4, 5 days in a row here above freezing. It could possibly, I don't want to get wild and crazy, but they're teasing us that may happen here this week. So it's gonna. I'll tell you what, it doesn't matter. It's going to feel 72 and sunny tomorrow, Dan, when they throw that first pitch. Was it 3:05 or is it 3:30? What's the first pitch tomorrow?
3:10, I want to say, but
3:10.
Yeah, I'll have to watch it when I get home, but that'll be cool. It's not on live TV, but that works for me.
Music to my ears, baby.
I'll check it out tomorrow night, and by Wednesday we'll have 2 baseball games to talk about.
Little Chief Wahoo action. I can't wait. Dan Wismar, my friend, have a good one. Enjoy the game tomorrow, and we'll talk on Wednesday, buddy.
Thanks, Roger. I'll be back at you.
You got it. My man, Dan Wismar. Man, that was a hell of a conversation. That was a long one, too. We've been doing this for a while. I don't care, man. We had a weekend to catch up on. Now we're doing it. Let's take the final break of the day, you guys. Come on back. Put a bow on this thing, wrap it up. Monsters had a tough weekend. I've got an interesting story for you guys. My man Bruce pointed it out to me here, and interesting story for you guys coming out of the Yankees, and this is a pretty cool little thing. And not only that, Dan Wismar, by the way, I hung up on him before I could tell him. In the course of that conversation, we've been corrected again. 10, not 11. Now we're down to 10, and I'm going to cross-check it in the break. Either way, we're only looking for 8 of them, but man, you guys don't play with these trivia questions. You go track it down and say, hey, here's what I got. I think you're wrong. We'll talk about that. Final chance. I'll give you guys the final question in the Sports Fix Tribe Trivia Challenge. Remember, tomorrow somebody's going to win. We'll set the stage for tomorrow. We'll talk about the news of the day and more. Don't go anywhere. Final segment of the Fix coming up right after this.
Listen to the Sports Fix if you want to be my lover.
Hey guys, before we go to the break, I want to talk to you a little bit again about our good friends at Harry Buffalo North Olmsted, the UFC, the Ultimate Fighting Championships, some of the hottest fights in the world today. Each and every one of their huge events, Harry Buffalo is one of the few places in Northeast Ohio you can go there and watch each and every UFC fight at the Harry Buffalo. And let me tell you, I've been there. The people are out the door. They are to the rafters. It is one of the craziest environments for some UFC fights. Wing Mondays, they've got great deals on wings and drinks, and every day of the week there's a different special, a different deal. And don't forget the Bison Burger, the unbelievable. It is the combination of a fantastic burger and eating healthy combined into one unbelievable sandwich. You have got to get a Bison Burger while you're there. So whatever you're looking for, whatever day of the week, Monday through Friday, Saturday, Sundays, there's something for you at the Harry Buffalo North Olmsted, just outside Great Northern Mall. Check them out today. Harry Buffalo, join the herd.
Portions of the Sports Fix brought to you by Fantasy Jocks. Visit fantasyjocks.com, your fantasy sports superstore. Championship belts, rings, trophies, and more. Fantasy sports lovers, you put so much time, hard work, and effort into playing week to week that it quickly stops being a fantasy and starts getting real. Real time spent making real decisions, creating real victory.
I'm the greatest man in the world!
And when the smoke clears, you want to show off those victories with a real prize.
I mean, a really real prize.
Nobody does that like Fantasy Jocks. The crew over at Fantasy Jocks have beautiful, high-quality, and heavy-duty championship belts, rings, trophies, and so much more for all your fantasy sports needs.
The trophy's 12 feet high, and it is glorious!
Football, baseball, hoops, you name it, they have it. Plus, they have awesome draft kits and party supplies to make all your preseason activities the envy of everyone. If your league needs a ring, belt, or trophy, or you want to upgrade what you already have, there's literally only one place to go. If you're going to be a fantasy jock, do it right.
It's mine, the most magnificent belt ever created, and it's mine.
With America's fantasy sports superstore, fantasyjocks.com. The Sports Fix is now available every day on the world's largest internet radio service, iHeartRadio. Download the free iHeartRadio app, subscribe to the show, and get your fix.
I'm Pro Football Hall of Famer Paul Warfield. There's just one place where students are students first and athletics are played with purpose and perspective. That place is your local high school. High school sports help young people become confident leaders and role models and use the skills developed today to do even bigger things in life tomorrow. High school sports, a winning part of a complete education.
This message presented by the Ohio High School Athletic Association.
In baseball, miracles can happen when a team works together.
2 out, bottom of the ninth.
Down to their last strike.
The same is true in the fight against cancer. That's why MLB has teamed up with Stand Up to Cancer. Because we believe that when we all stand up together,
41,000 on their feet,
we can make cancer history.
Now everybody's standing.
What a buzz in this building.
This is beyond a dream. Stand up with MLB at standuptocancer.org.
Hey, Cleveland, this is Ed Doherty, voice of San Ignatius Wildcat football, and you're listening to the Sports Fix.
This is the Sports Fix. What is your name?
I'm the dude. So that's what you call me, you know? That or his dudeness or duder or, El Duderino if you're not into the whole brevity thing.
Dude, what do you want?
Well, it's this rug I have. It really tied the room together.
We are not a show to be swept under the rug. We are a show to be heard.
It's the Sports Fix.
So it's the second of the month, but I had to get a little Bone Thugs and Harmony in there for the first Sports Fix of the month of March here, rolling on. Thank you guys for being with us. We had an extra long 3-hour edition of the Fix today. I missed the 3-hour edition of the Fix. It gets tough when the news compresses, but now it's expanding back out. As we said, we hit that magical month of March where all of a sudden we have no shortage of things to talk about here. You know what? Guys, as we get back to it, J-Rocc with you here. The Sports Fix. We're rolling. Facebook.com/The Sports Fix. Tweet with us at The Sports Fix CLE. Email us, thesportsfix@AOL.com. As we get back into it here, just talking earlier about injuries and how important that plays a part in the Cavs and what they do in the playoffs. The Bulls already dealing with Derrick Rose and him going down, although he, word is that first day, already back, rehabbing, looking to be back perhaps in time for the playoffs. Still not what you want there. Man, the Bulls are getting hit left and right. Yesterday, Jimmy Butler went out of yesterday's game against the Clippers. Then today, word comes out he's not going to need surgery. He has a sprained left elbow, but he is going to be out possibly 6 weeks. And that's if rest and treatment allow him to come back by the end of the season. So now the Bulls are hopeful that near the final few games they can get Derrick Rose and Jimmy Butler back. But I mean, that's like the Cavs losing 2 guys, right? I mean, imagine 2 of those 3 going down. And on top of that, Taj Gibson's down too. He's had ankle problems all season. He re-sprained it again. He was in a walking boot the other day, so no weight bearing right now at all. He may be down a while longer too. That's what I mean when very quickly things can turn south. It's hard enough to deal with one. You lose Rose, but man, Jimmy Butler to me is more valuable just because of how much more he's been a part of the Bulls than what Derrick Rose has done so far. But look at what he's doing this year. He's 20 points, 6 boards, couple of assists, playing defense, became an all-star. Butler's been the man, and that's a tough setback there as teams are fighting. We were just talking about that 3-team race for the 2, 3, and 4 in the East. That's definitely going to hurt the Bulls. I mean, even if they get them back for the playoffs, that's going to affect that seeding where, last thing you want to do is end up on the wrong part of that bracketing where you'll end up having Atlanta in the second round, which is quite possible there, depending on where they slip to. Right now, they're hanging right in that 1-game gap with the Cavs and with the Raptors for 2, 3, and 4. Tough news coming out of Chicago. You got to play them as they come, though, and that team's going to have to jump back. That's why every night you watch Cavs play, man, when a guy goes down, look up and go, let him get back up, because if he doesn't, that changes the outlook of this whole thing, you guys. Some other stuff. Hey, man, over the weekend, by the way, how many of you guys, it didn't take long if you watched it, 14 seconds or so, Ronda Rousey, latest victory for her, continuing to just explode. So many people, hardcore MMA people, don't like Ronda Rousey. They think she's just a pretty face, and oh yes, she is a pretty face, but she can fight too, and she keeps doing it. She keeps showing you what she's got. Go ahead and question her if you want. She'll go out there and put another one down in 14 seconds. I'm a big mark for Ronda Rousey. Big fan. Excuse me there. Much better. We'll turn off the mic. Big fan of Ronda Rousey and big victory for her over the weekend. It has only just begun. People catching on to that. The thing is, though, is that marketability is going to be tough. I mean, there's only so many contenders. There's only so many fights, and in all reality, there's only so much of the public that will get into the aspect of UFC has still got that. It's been pretty normalized to most people, but it's still got that little red letter aspect to some people. Women's MMA is not as accepted as men's MMA in a lot of places too. But it doesn't matter because Ronda Rousey's got star power that goes well beyond that. That's why people tune in to see it. She's got the Hollywood thing going for her. She's got all of that stuff. But some people hate that, and some people are just so anti-Rousey. Me, I love the chick, man, for many different reasons. I love the woman, I should say. See, I'm gonna have some people mad at me for that, but I'm not saying that in a disrespectful term, man. I am all about it, and I don't mind at all seeing a couple of good women fighter go out there and do it. I think Ronda's great. Love to see her and Cyborg. Love to see it's not gonna happen. Love to see Gina Carano come back into it, but not gonna happen. But there's a limited number of contenders out there as Ngannou now goes down, and that's one more down. But that's the only problem there is that it's hard to continue to build up contenders and fights that people want to see. But right now, the fight that people want to see is just Ronda Rousey versus whomever. So she's the draw right now for sure. Big fight there over the weekend and UFC. I'm going to talk some more about it here. We'll get Vince McKee on. He's been doing a lot of MMA writing for the Inscriber lately. Going to talk some of this stuff with him. But, all these drug failures and everything lately, UFC is now going to have – they thought they were going to give up on the drug testing, the one that they pay for. They're now going they're going full stream with it. We'll talk more about it, but they have to, as there's going to be a – you're gonna have to make things worse before you make them better when it comes to the PEDs and all of that stuff, as baseball found out and UFC's finding out too. I want to talk some more about that later on this week. One more thing too, we're getting ready to get out of here. I am up against it, you guys. Tomorrow, trivia question 10 has already been asked. The winner will be decided. Question 10, what 10? And we have got the answer. It's 10. What 10? There has been 10 Cleveland Indians broadcasters in the history of the Indians franchise who have also at some point in their career been the voice of either the Cavs or the Indians for one season or more. Give me 8 of those 10 announcers who have done double duty at some time in their life with the Cavaliers or the Browns. On the list of 10 Cleveland Indians announcers, give me 8 of them. Here's something else I want to talk about tomorrow. Email your answer to thesportsfix@AOL.com. Very interesting story. A man out of a New York Yankees fan, Richard Albero, in honor of his nephew who died in the September 11th attacks, he's walking from home plate at Steinbrenner Field in Tampa to home plate at Yankee Stadium in the Bronx, 1,200 miles to raise money. He's walking an average of 20 miles a day. He should be to home plate at Yankee Stadium sometime in the middle of the month of May. I thought that was a pretty cool story when I saw that. I'll talk some more about that tomorrow. Jeff Gorman from Indians101.com is here. Dr. Football's in the house. My man, Bill Checkus, talking some NFL. We'll have the winner of the Tribe Trivia Challenge and more. Remember, 10 questions, 10 days. Get your final answers in. The Sports Fix at AOL.com. We'll talk more about everything and a lot of things tomorrow. Same bad time, same bad channel. Live at noon, right here on The Fix. We love you, Cleveland and beyond. Have fun. We'll see you tomorrow on The Sports Fix.
They'll try to steal my heart, but we brought it back. Thanks to Cleveland Clinic, now they call them Kiss the Cardiac. Rock cars, science in the towers.